Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening drive. Brooke Grimsley here alongside Matthew Rocchio and Bradford Bruns. Danny Mac will be back with us tomorrow, and Randy Kerber has the entire week off. We did a little bit of a switcheroo, guys. So I just got back from my bachelorette trip in Arizona. A little tired, but as you guys can see, I have multiple energy drinks surrounding me at this current moment. And now Randy's going to Arizona. We did a little switcheroo there, but how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Brooke. What's the drink count?
Okay, so we have 3 drinks. We have a giant Stanley Cup water.
Yeah.
And I know that these are kind of controversial right now. 1, because everybody wants one. And 2, supposedly there's lead in these things. I don't know if they're just trying to scare me away from it because I'm obsessed. And then I have a Celsius energy drink. And then I have a hot coffee. A lot happening there.
All of the proverbial bases covered. I love it. There you go. Look at that.
A little bit of everything going on here. But
your camera's also shooting the wall right now for some reason.
This happens every single time. We are off and running.
Mondays.
This is how Mondays go. But I'm so excited that you guys are joining me. This is, first of all, fantastic having you, Bradford, in here. You do such a wonderful job.
Appreciate that.
And Matthew, I'm getting used to seeing you across from me in Randy's seat right now.
It's a little different, isn't it?
It is a little bit different.
Feels different.
How do you feel about it?
It feels weird, to be honest. It
Does
feels
it feel
odd.
a little sacrilegious being in Randy's seat?
Yes. Bradford had like the rundown over in this spot, and I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this. All right, fine. Feels a little bit like I'm just stepping into a place I shouldn't right now.
Well, you belong here.
I was watching, you know what?
You belong here.
I was watching the Netflix series, and Tom Kim walked into the Champions locker room at Augusta on accident because he was just trying to look for his way around. And he was like, I don't think I should have been in here. And that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm Tom Kim, 20 years old, stepping into the Masters Championship locker room. I shouldn't be here.
You should be here, and I'm glad that you're here. So we have a great show today. We're talking to John Denton of MLB.com because I guess some things happened while I was gone. I don't know, maybe some other injuries. Something else happened?
Just a few.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Fantastic.
Definitely not connected to you leaving at all.
Okay, let's address that just really quickly here. Lars Noot injured, which we'll dive into a little bit more here later on. And I kept getting messages of the fact that I left town inconveniently as the president and CEO of the Nutty Neuters of Noot Nation. Lars Noot goes down. That is not a great look on my part. I will not leave anymore if that means that there will be outfield injuries because we cannot have the outfield dropping like flies again.
You said that you hadn't taken a vacation in like 18 months. It seemed to be also like the time frame when Lars Noot really started to make an impact on this Cardinals this roster. So all of a sudden you take a vacation and he gets injured. Brooke, what's going on here?
That is not a good look. And we're going to have Kerbs to talk about the Blues standing pat during the trade deadline. But first, let's get into the big news that happened late last night. I was refreshing my X feed, and all of a sudden, there's Russell Wilson with his announcement that he is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Now, I don't exactly hate this deal, guys, for the Steelers. Now, what does this mean for Kenny Pickett? That's a different conversation. But basically, he's going to be signed for $1.2 million, and the Broncos are going to be paying the brunt of that contract for $38 million. Oof. It's not a bad deal for the Steelers, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Steelers, you get a competent quarterback that can steer your offense a lot better than Kenny Pickett has consistently. Again, we make jokes about Russell Wilson, and the Broncos weren't good this year, but 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in 3,000 yards is nothing to, just completely shrug your shoulders at, especially when you are improving from Kenny Pickett. There's some other factors of that offense that are changing. They're looking to maybe trade Deontay Johnson. So it's a reset for the Steelers. But when you have the kind of Cardinals of the NFL kind of feel where you're just always consistently making the playoffs no matter what. We know Mike Tomlin's record of not having a losing season. I think the idea of getting a stabilizing factor from a veteran quarterback who's won a Super Bowl and getting it for $1 million? That's not half bad.
And Matt, you mentioned the key term there, just a stabilizing presence for this particular team. We already know year in, year out, this division, Brooke, it's entirely brutal. Now, last season, so many different observers, you're looking at the first half in particular, the Steelers' schedule, and wondering how in the world is this team even competitive in that division, even vying for a playoff spot, right? With less than representative play at quarterback. And I think take away the long-term projections right now, just in the here and now, in the present for the 2024 season. Russell Wilson, we know right now it's being branded as a competition to be. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it, because I, like you, really like the potential fit there as far as what Russell Wilson could do from a play action standpoint in Arthur Smith's system. Arthur Smith, go back a few years, as you well know, in Tennessee, when Derrick Henry was operating at the height of his powers, you were leaning on the ground game and then play action to follow. Last season, Russell Wilson, yes, he was hamstrung in a lot of ways. Sean Payton didn't allow him to do that many things, vary it up that much in the offense, but he was still an extremely efficient, effective play action quarterback. And frankly, with the Steelers running game, with the identity that they still want to impose in that division, that's really all you would need at this point for the building blocks of a solid offense, and let the rest take care of itself.
How many people are picking up George Pickens in their fantasy team this year?
That's a good, especially if they trade Johnson. Yeah, that's gonna be one of those like 130 target kind of seasons for Pickens.
That's what I'm saying. I absolutely do not hate this deal.
Call.
And can I just say this real quick? The NFL and the way that they do things, how quickly, because we haven't even mentioned all the other moves. You have Mac Jones moving on. You have Baker Mayfield signing this big contract. Meanwhile, you look at Major League Baseball, you still have guys still out there like Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. I think that it just kind of shows you this is why the NFL continues to stay relevant, exciting. There's always something happening, and they do it in a timely fashion.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit that on Friday of just when you have the system that the NFL has, it creates talking points at all levels. And like you said, look at Major League Baseball and the fact that players aren't getting signed. Look at the way that other teams in other sports are able to get around their softer salary caps, and it allows them to retain players. And I think in a lot of ways it might be better for those leagues. But in the grand scheme of things, the hard cap and the things that it forces out of the NFL, it's a reason why it's one of the reasons why the 24/7 news cycle, I think, from the NFL solidified in such a way. Obviously, having the draft and things like that is a big reason for that. But when you have these things that immediately get talking points going, when the cut day was coming down for the Bills, and they're cutting half their defense, and other teams are releasing other big players. You see Eric Armstead is a cap casualty from the San Francisco 49ers when they aren't able to get an extension done there, and it just creates these conversations constantly over and over and over again. And it's not even just the regular free agents like a Baker Mayfield. It's these extra pieces of conversation that just get tacked on into the offseason. Mm-hmm. So you're always talking about the NFL, because if you're a fan of the NFL or a fan of a team, you're thinking, oh, who's that player who can help my defense? How can Tre'Davious White be our cornerback? How can he snap things up? How can Eric Armstead change our defensive line? That's the things you're always constantly thinking about, and it's why the NFL, I think, partially is so damn successful at all times. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered was the famous line, and the pig just keeps getting fat, and no one's walking around slaughtering, because the NFL is number one, and I don't think it's ever going to stop.
And it's really a masterclass, isn't it, in being able to segue seamlessly from one storyline into the next. Okay, you really weren't enthralled that much by the goings-on at the scouting combine. All right, that's fine. Caleb Williams wasn't out there slinging
excited.
It. Okay, well, a lot of people in general. Marvin Harrison Jr. was inexplicably AWOL. All right,
point.
you didn't like that very much? That's fine, because guess what? The following week or a few days later, we're going to not just exactly ease you into free agency, but now it's legal to talk about. The legal tampering period is here, guys, and then formally we can have all of the deals actually come to fruition on Wednesday. So much like the NBA offseason, I think, Matt, it really is the news cycle. It is the thing that simply doesn't stop, and it's brilliant from a promotional, from a marketing standpoint. You can quibble a little bit with the details and how everything really originates and comes to pass, but you cannot deny that as far as hyping the product at all times to feed this never-ending cycle, it's right there for you in the National Football League.
Never ending. And I just talked about Major League Baseball and their lack of moves in free agency. But looking at the Cardinals yesterday afternoon, you have Thomas Saggese going off with a 4-for-4 day. By the way, he came off the bench, 6 RBI for him. I like Thomas Saggese a lot. I think he could force his way into the conversation, not maybe at this moment because there's not a position for him, but he's a very exciting player. The Cardinals went on to beat the Marlins 12-8, the final score in that one. Then the Blues this weekend, as we mentioned, they stand pat. And guys, after standing pat, the performances that have followed since, they were shut out by the Rangers 4-0. A very uninspiring game right now from the Blues. This is the roster that you have that you're sticking with. But how do we feel about this group now moving forward?
Well, not any better than I was on Friday, because that's about the worst possible game you can put together after a deadline where you don't make any big moves, and your message to the fan base is this is what we're building with. This is our base to continue building. We're going to add our young pieces, but maybe not the big deals that you think are coming. We're not adding the first-round picks. And part of that, I think, also needs to be thrown out that that's not also just the Blues' choice. And I think JR did a great job in his wrap-up of the trade deadline, pointing out that when a Jake Gensel trade to Carolina doesn't even get them a guaranteed first-round pick, you have to wonder how much they were actually getting in talks around Pavel Buchnevich. And I think that's a thing you got to consider. But at the same time, that game after you make no moves, pretty much the most disappointing thing you can cook up for the Blues.
No, you look at the results. You look at the fact that, Brooke, tonight, of course, we know the Blues in Boston, you're wrapping up a pretty taxing 5-game trip on the East Coast. We understand that. But to come out on Saturday at Madison Square Garden, we know that this New York team is nails. We understand that. We also understand that in the early going, actually peppering the very capable netminder there on the other side of the Rangers too. The Blues offense did show up, but thereafter, that's the thing. You're always looking for or waiting for that other shoe of sorts to drop. And I'm not just going to pass off the result on Saturday post-trade deadline as totally immaterial, because you wanted to see how this organization, how this squad on the ice was going to respond. How many times over the last few weeks from Doug Armstrong, from the interim coach Drew Bannister, have we heard repeatedly, basically, we didn't have it for this stretch. We didn't have it tonight. On how many different occasions are we going to see that lack or discern that lack of identity and just continue to, in a sense, be okay with it? Because you were stagnant for good reason at the trade deadline. But to come out and to have a performance like that, albeit on the road, I think it is dispiriting. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how tonight, against another extremely game squad, maybe now the favorite in the Eastern Conference to come out of there in Boston, you want to see the response before you come back home, because another listless performance along the lines of a shutout or something poor like that, you can't have it again.
No, you can't have that whatsoever. And the Blues facing the Bruins tonight. Puck drop is at 6 p.m. Pregame starting here at 5. And Jordan Binnington, I just want to put this out there, and we'll discuss this a little bit later. He needs to have some redemption this season, and he had the redemption. And I feel like he does not get the credit he deserves. 35 saves in that shutout. I feel like this has been one of his best seasons, and to have the performance like that, losers of 3 straight in this 5-game road trip. We'll just have to see what happens. But also, City SC this weekend, guys, they were able to prevent their first loss of the season with a goal in extra minutes. City SC. I think I'm pretty excited about them.
Yeah, I think there's some people who are going to be like, no, don't come at me with positives about a draw. But I will say there was a line during the broadcast that I thought was indicative and kind of the messaging from the standpoint of a veteran in the league that I think needs to be said, which is get your wins at home and get points you can away. And that was the situation you were looking at. Not an ideal game. You led up 2 goals to each of their, one apiece to their center backs. Not how you dial up them getting their offense. They're missing their best offensive player in Sebastian Driussi, and somehow they get 2 goals from their center backs. So not ideal, but again, the fight back from City to start this season has been extremely impressive. They weren't great when they went down last year. And it seemed like it just kind of ended games if you were able to get an early goal on City or just stop them from scoring early and tagging on them late. So for them to fight back at 2 different points in the game, down 1-0 to fight back 1-1, go down 2-1 almost immediately after that, and then to fight back and get a second goal again that late, that was extremely impressive. And the fact that it comes from the foot of Celio Pompeu, who's having a masterful season to start, that was great for City as well.
Yeah, and Matt, as you hinted at, you're talking about and dissecting here the first true road test of the season in 1 year in. Now the target is on your back. It's no longer just the cute story, the narrative, and having widespread success coming right out of the gate. Right now, everybody knows the identity of your squad, what you are capable of doing. And I think to be able to weather this storm, per se, early on in the season, when you are not certainly operating at maximum capacity as of yet, to just be able to come back from last season, obviously the disappointing result, and to kind of, in a sense, tread water early on, that's the thing. You haven't been blown out. You've had some representative performances, and better times lie ahead, or so you would hope.
And to wrap up the rest of the weekend, you have college basketball in the Arch Madness tournament happening here. You have Drake upsetting Indiana 84-80, the final score in that one. And Mizzou completes a winless SEC schedule, blowing it out against LSU. What was the final score of that one? Was that one also
84-80?
Also 84-80. Okay.
So
yeah, but
close.
At the half, guys.
No.
At the half.
There's not a single thing I'm okay with about that Mizzou game. That was the fact that it was that close. at the end, it
Winless
bothered.
in the
Yeah,
SEC.
yeah. Hey, listen, we're coming for your record books. Watch out. We didn't always say it was positive. We're coming for them. That's for sure.
Winless in the SEC. What a way for them to go on that. Dennis Gates, what do you think is the feeling right now amongst Mizzou fans?
I think the feeling for Dennis Gates is that he's not freaking out unless the prospects, the transfers and that top 5 recruiting class starts freaking out because of this past season. Because, I mean, you just got to look at a lot of things across the board. Again, what are parts of a basketball game that the coach affects the most? And how did Mizzou do in those scenarios? And I think you would argue that for their talent level, they were better than their talent level. And that's all you could ask from a coach, is to create a team that's better than the sum of their parts. And I think Dennis Gates did that for this year, despite the fact that the sum of his parts was a lot different than last year. He lost NBA-level players. So I think there's a reason why you need to slow down your thought process and just give him some time, because the pieces are there. More pieces are coming. You can't just fire a coach after 2 years. It sends such a bad message.
We grossly underestimated how much of a profound loss guys like Kobe Brown, like DeAndre Goldston, like Demoy Hodge were actually going to be for this team. And for individuals to look at this program and to have expected, I think, an encore of last season, that would have been a bit misguided. But at the same time, you did have so much young talent. You're trying to cobble together, once again, a roster, kind of some disparate pieces. And I don't think anyone expected another 20-plus win season. But in what is becoming an increasingly competitive SEC landscape, you would have thought, okay, Mizzou is there in that second tier or so. I wasn't expecting another NCAA tournament performance, but I will say this. Going into next season, we all know about the much ballyhooed recruiting class. We understand that. But from a transfer portal standpoint, I think that's where a lot of the misgivings this season actually came to pass, Matt, because they simply didn't work out. And all season long, having been there in Columbia, having listened to Dennis Gates go on ad nauseum, not just about the constant free throw discrepancies, but rather the rotations and simply trying to compete on a night-in, night-out basis, they just didn't have enough guys capable of facilitating the offense. And last year, whereas you had Sean East and Noah Carter coming off of the bench and being complimentary role players, this year being thrust into the star-making positions, they were ill-equipped to handle that, and the depth simply wasn't there to the same degree. I don't necessarily buy into the logic here that Dennis Gates is on some sort of an extremely short leash, but at the same time, when you talk about leash, when you talk about the fact that he was indeed the hire of Desiree Reed-Francois, and we know about all the instability right there in that position right now for Mizzou, you can't exactly be breathing that easily when you've done something now that very few teams, frankly, in D1 history have accomplished.
That's Bradford Bruns and Rocc, and I'm Brooke. And coming up next, we have our favorite things from this weekend, and I have a story for you guys about my bachelorette trip. That's coming up here on the opening drive.
This is Tyler Tucker, and today is Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day is presented by SSM Health Orthopedics, your nationally recognized team for knee and shoulder pain relief.
and Ferrario are asking their listeners to try and beat the Blues during their weekly special giveaway. Random selected listeners will compete to score a signed Blues puck and a pair of tickets to a Blues home game. The Beat the Blues weekly giveaway with BK and Ferrario is powered by Comfort Experts, your independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. Learn more now at 101ESPN.com. Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
Rocc Roll and Bradford Bruns here. Okay, wait. Before we get started for our three things from this weekend, and we're actually going to do two things each because there's three of us, so we're going to condense this a little bit. Before I get into this, do you have a nickname? Because I've never asked you this before. Like I call Rocc Rockio or Rock. What do I call you? Do I just call you Bruns?
Bruns is great. Quite simply Brad, because most people don't want to go with the full first name of Bradford. So yeah, whatever you're feeling.
Okay.
It's true.
You know,
the fact that people don't call you Bradford is insulting.
It's off-putting
Call
to
him
some.
Bradford.
But we are
It's
a
great
nickname
name.
show here. We
Yes,
are
we
a nickname show. So I have to work on this the rest of the show and give you some sort of nickname. We could also go full hockey and call you Brunny.
Brunny.
Oh, and the play on Bronny, I like that.
I usually
like
don't
that.
like the hockey nickname, Brooke, but I don't know. That works.
It kind of makes sense.
That works.
Also, back in high school journalism, went by the moniker of B Breezy a couple of times. You know,
Crazy.
All right. Well, you
You and
just told
Marsh are going to drop a track soon?
you just told us which
You never
generation
know.
you're from because that makes a lot of sense. All right, just let's get started with our favorite things from this weekend. So number 2 for me
Number 2.
is going to be seeing the young Cardinals players getting some playing opportunities. Now, I never like injuries, but as we discussed earlier, the outfield is dropping like flies currently with 2/3 of your outfield injured at this moment and questionable for opening day. I liked the chance to see Victor Scott more. Victor Scott is very exciting for many different reasons. His tenacity, his speed. I just really like what he's able to do. And Thomas Saggese, as we talked about earlier, going 4 for 4 with 6 RBI. Ollie Marmol said this past weekend that he's a student in the game. And I feel like you see that with him. He's a very exciting young player. So that is one of my favorite things from this weekend is just seeing these younger players get an opportunity during spring training and maybe a bigger opportunity down the line.
Yeah, Victor Scott the second. Excuse me. I'm adding a whole generation there. A fascinating player right off the get. You know that with that kind of speed, even if he doesn't have maybe the best instincts, that he can be a game-changing defensive player as well. And so obviously, when you think about adding more speed on the base pass and wanting to see more steals and wanting to see more running, and you hear Ollie Marmol claim, although he neglected to give us the stat that he said the stat people kicked out to him, he is claiming that they actually were not a bad running team when they were only down by a run or two. I think with the way this lineup's geared with a lot of lefty bats, I think there's a chance that they jump on teams early, and maybe we do see a lot more running, and I think Victor Scott could be a big part of that if that's how it goes.
And March 10th or not, I'm excited by the prospect of being able to see Victor Scott II top lining your order, guys. I mean, right now we understand. Yes, we understand there's still an ample amount of spring training action left, but he has done nothing but stick at the top of the order, mind you, and thrive. And we understand that the athleticism, the wheels, the speed, it's all there, the total package defensively. He's going to grow. He's going to get better, Rock, with respect to those instincts and whatnot. But he's by no means right now looking overmatched whatsoever at the Grapefruit League level. When you're hitting close to 300, when you have an OBP of around 400 overall, he's not just sticking right now, but he's acquitting himself very well. And yes, I understand the long shot odds are still there as far as him cracking the opening day roster. But to make it even a conversation, to make it enticing, boy, that's exciting for Cards fans.
Leading off for Victor Scott. I mean, you know what? Your lips to God's ears on that one, Bradford Bruns. My number 2 is going to be something not sports related, but something that every time I opened Twitter, turned on my phone this weekend, I couldn't help from get away with it. Have you guys been watching the scandal coming out of across the pond with the royal family?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brooke. I knew you were going to be on this. So people haven't seen.
Would talk about it.
People haven't seen Kate Middleton in person in the last 60 days. I think the last
Since December.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw an update was 57 days, but that was a few days ago when I read it, so I'm rounding up to 60 days. And so they drop a photo of Kate with her 3 children. And then yesterday, the AP, alongside Reuters and a couple other big sites, I think Agence France was another one, they put a kill order on the picture saying, quote unquote, this is from the kill notification from the AP. At closer inspection, it appears that the source has manipulated the image. No replacement photo will be sent. And so after all of these questions around whether or not something's happened to Kate Middleton, they do put out a photo seemingly to quiet the rumors. And then this happens. And frankly, I know it sounds dumb, I couldn't keep myself away from clicking on every single Twitter thread that I saw talking about this, because this is fascinating to me.
No, it is super fascinating, and I'm concerned. I'm not a big conspiracy theory person.
Are you a big royal family person?
No, not really,
Okay.
but it's everywhere. Like you said, the information is everywhere, and I do find it really, really weird that we haven't seen her since December, and then all of a sudden there's these photos that are obviously photoshopped. Nobody can see her. Nobody knows what's going on. They're not putting out a statement. I don't like the looks of it. It's a little sketchy, and it's been fascinating to follow the story, at least. Hopefully she's okay.
I don't understand how people are able to catch bad photoshopping errors, because I look at the photo and I was like zoomed in on it. I'm trying to find out, okay, why would this get killed? And I saw one thing, and then I'm scrolling, and people are pulling out like 6 things out of the photo that you can see were photoshopped weird. I don't know how you guys have eyes like this. You must have never stared at Saturday morning cartoons way too close to the television.
There you go. We haven't seen Kate Middleton, perhaps, but Katie Holmes, her doppelganger, that was the popular
Is that
theory.
is that a popular theory?
Yes.
Okay, I
That
like
was the
that.
theory,
That's
is that
fun.
she has a
That's fun.
doppelganger
Okay.
out there.
I believe a lot of them probably do.
Probably.
I mean, I'm sure you don't want to just always go out in public or want people to know who you are. I think that it would make sense.
I would do it.
But yeah, show us
Number
real
2.
photo.
Sorry there, Rock. All right, for me, I will swing it back to the sports end of things, and
Thank you, sir.
specifically the Ladies College Hardwood Championship Week, the women's game style, and Caitlin Clark and her Iowa Hawkeyes. Yesterday, guys, would there have been any more appropriate outcome? There had to have been this outcome, as a matter of fact. Iowa needs overtime in order to vanquish Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. But Clark does her usual thing, popping off for 30-plus points, 30 of which came in the second half alone. And thereafter, too, did you see the tremendous, indelible recreation of the Kobe Bryant post-NBA title image? There's some great photography on the scene as well. And I'm excited to see Iowa has a tremendous team from top to bottom. Last Sunday, as a matter of fact, watched that record-breaking performance when Clark surpassed Pete Maravich for all-time points at the D1 level. Ohio State, very good. Iowa obviously had to knock off a game Nebraska squad yesterday. You want to see this narrative, I think, conclude in the only way it can, and that's for Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes to make a deep run in the women's national tournament.
And there was a little bit of controversy. We were talking about photos of the photo that she took with the trophy at the end, where she was obviously doing a nod to Kobe Bryant. And some people were kind of upset about it. It's just a photo. It's just a photo. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Just a photo.
She's been wearing the Mamacitas all season, right?
Yeah.
Paying tribute. I don't know where the controversry is here.
Getting angry about that, it shows simply just an ignorance over what Kobe Bryant meant to women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I think people don't understand just how much of a champion for the women's game that he became because of his daughter. And when you have a guy like Kobe Bryant, who, if you are Caitlin Clark, you become a fan of just because you are a basketball nut, and then he becomes the champion for your game, I would expect a lot of, her biggest fandom is connected to Kobe Bryant.
My number one thing from this weekend
Number 1.
is going to be, of course, my bachelorette trip. It was a lot of fun. I have not taken many vacations during my, I would say, 20s and now 30s. I haven't taken many vacations, so it was very nice just to get away. Went to Scottsdale with a lot of my friends. Some of my bridesmaids are back home, so I don't get to see them as often, and their moms. Now, the little story that I teased ahead earlier, and my friend's completely fine with me sharing this, but we started off with a bang on Thursday. So I got there on Thursday, and we were planning on going out, all the different kind of stuff, and one of my friends had to get emergency surgery. So she had already had surgery recently. She was cleared to go travel. And so that's how we started things off, is that she had to go to the emergency room at 2 a.m. to get surgery, to repair the surgery that she had had before. So that was a way that we started the trip. We all rallied, though. She's completely fine now. She's a great friend, a great trooper, and she felt great the rest of the trip. It was just, that's how we started out the bachelorette party.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It got better from there, though, right?
It did.
A lot less hospital trips?
Yes.
Okay,
no more
there we
hospital.
go.
No more hospital trips whatsoever. So it was just a great weekend with my friends, and it was a lot of fun.
Did everything kind of hit the way you thought it would?
I mean, things can go a little bit. I'm very chill. Like, I don't like having, you know how some people, when you go on vacation with them, they have an itinerary where you're almost going hour by hour. Everything is meticulously
I don't know what
planned.
you're talking about because I don't go on vacation with those people.
I don't either, typically. So I made sure that my trip was the same way because I would get so stressed out if we had to do something every single minute. So it was a lot of relaxing, just having fun, great dinners, easy peasy,
Nice.
other than the hospital. I say easy peasy, and then I mentioned the hospital trip. So everything was fine other than that.
God, that's a crazy way to start it. I'm going to go with my number one thing. It has to be what was going on downtown, and that was the MVC tournament. That was an absolute blast to watch. You had some great semifinal games. Obviously, Indiana State, as they have the entire season, was rolling on through the tournament. They beat up the Panthers in the semifinal. Drake and Bradley was a fascinating game. But how about the championship game between Drake and Indiana State? Drake takes a 13-point halftime lead. Indiana State fights all the way back, and then Drake's got to finish them off. A crazy game. Tucker DeVries was incredible, 4 of 5 from 3. They were raining down 11 of 18 from deep, 61% from 3 for Drake as they win the MVC tournament final. I think we probably should see both those teams in the tournament. Obviously, Drake gets the automatic qualifier. Indiana State should be in there, and if they're not, it's a crime, mainly because Robbie Avila is so much fun to watch. And if you don't know who Robbie Avila is, tune into any Indiana State Sycamore game, and you will see him quickly. Yeah. If not because he's impacting the game, but because he's 6'10", 250 pounds, and he has these big, like Coke bottle glasses that he wears. He's a fascinating, hilarious kind of player to watch dominate people out there. He kind of reminds me of, you remember the St. Mary's Sandman? Like Oscar Saman,
yeah.
He was a big man for St. Mary's Gales in like 2011 who took over the tournament for a couple years. Big men like that are always the best. And so in the MVC tournament, always so much fun. Love it that these kind of events can come down to St. Louis, especially since if you are tapped into the news, there's been a lot of rough news about the city of St. Louis. So it's good to have some positivity coming out of the MVC tournament. It was a great tournament and a great game, and congratulations to Drake.
I like that comp, Rocc. In back-to-back years, Drake obviously getting it done there, and you would have to think at this point in time, Indiana State has done enough as an at-large, but maybe, breathing a bit carefully heading into Selection Sunday. I will make mine one quick on the back end.
Number 1.
And we'll also go off the floor for this one, too. Guys, were you a part of the band scene in high school, college, anything like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what was the
when I
instrument
was
quickly?
younger.
Yeah.
A saxophone in high school, clarinet in grade school.
Okay, I was not exactly an accomplished percussionist. I did play in the marching band, this and that in high school, whatnot. However, nothing quite like, not even close to being as adept as the oldest. Dakota over the weekend actually qualified for state on the saxophone for the second consecutive year. So regional competitions, all of these different things happen, and then you have the chance, Franklin County style, to head all the way to Mizzou. So next month, we're going to head to Missouri and see if there's a new athletic director on the scene, number 1, and 2, try to record a nice rating there on the music sax side. Congratulations.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is
Fantastic. Love that.
Amazing. That is so good. And you're beaming right now. You're so excited.
Yeah, it's so neat. You work so hard. You see if one of your own obviously is putting in that much time and effort and over a period of months, and you have maybe a 4 to 5 minute piece, and there are no do-overs. There are no mulligans. You nail it or you go home. Former to cold.
And nailed it. All right, well, coming up, we are going to discuss the Blues standing pat during the trade deadline. Was it the right move for Doug Armstrong to make? That's coming up next here on The Opening Drive.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com. Caw. Tackle your 314-day plans with the Battlehawks this Thursday at Ballpark Village. Celebrate all things STL with a free 314-day Battlehawks Town Hall event with head coach Anthony Becht and the Battlehawks Brass. Plus, enjoy fan-favorite activities, ticket giveaways, exclusive merchandise, photo ops, live music, and more. Also, the Fast Lane will be broadcasting live from Ballpark Village from 2 to 6 p.m. This event is free to attend. Get all the details now at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Sumner One. Welcome to the one place where everything works.
Planning for spring at Lowe's means big savings on outdoor power equipment, and Lowe's knows nothing feels better than free. Buy one select Ego string trimmer, leaf blower, or mower kit. Get one select 56-volt battery free. That's up to a $299 value. Power through spring with Ego, the #1 rated brand in cordless outdoor power. Because Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 4/3 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Discover, this is Daniela.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great, but with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Do you like asparagus and mushroom sorbet? I've got leftovers.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashback debit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
From the opening drive, the balloon party, BK and Ferrario, to the fast lane and more. If you missed anything on 101 ESPN today, get caught up with all the shows and 101 podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Driven by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues intact and bound for Beantown. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns, and this Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. After staying quiet at the NHL trade deadline on Friday, the Blues silenced on the ice over the weekend. The Rangers blank St. Louis 4-0 tonight. The Noot will attempt to turn the page. Puck drop in Boston, scheduled for 6 o'clock with pregame on 101 ESPN beginning at 5. Baseball, the Cardinals knock off Miami 12-8 this afternoon. Washington is the opponent on the college hardwood. Drake outlasts #1 seed Indiana State downtown to capture the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at Londoff.com and LondoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
This is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Blues general manager Doug Armstrong deciding to stand pat with this roster currently right now, and the Blues are facing the Boston Bruins tonight. Puck drop is at 6, pregame is at 5, and right now, going into Boston, the Blues are the losers of 3 straight during their 5-game road trip. So this is the response that you're currently seeing from this team right now, and things exactly haven't been going well this season. We can go back to the Craig Berube firing, all the different kind of stuff. I think clearly right now what you are seeing is that this is more of a roster construction issue more than anything. I don't think it had anything to do with Berube. I don't think it has anything currently exactly to do with Drew Bannister. I think that things, while right now you're not doing anything at the trade deadline, you just have to ride the ship till the end of the season and then recalibrate during the offseason.
Yeah, obviously. I think if you look at the stat-wise, the only big change post Berube has been the power play, and I don't think we're going to completely, blame Berube for that problem or credit Bannister for the solving of that problem the way it has gone. And it's just the effort level is there at the same time, defensively from the forwards and from your defensemen, and that's been the biggest issue the entire season. We're not seeing the propensity of backdoor tap-ins like we saw last year, but it is another season where you're asking your goaltender essentially to win games night in and night out, and that's unrealistic to keep going.
And so, at what point did Doug Armstrong know that maybe there's something wrong with this Blues team, or maybe that they were playing uninspiring hockey?
That Nashville game, we were flat in Toronto, tired. I sort of understood a little bit of that. Some nights you just don't have your legs, but we knew we were going to get a tiger by the tail. They got thumped at home 9-2 by Dallas. They made a statement that they weren't happy, and I thought if we had have won that game, if we rose up to that challenge, then all of a sudden you're 6 up. Their problems haven't gone away. Well, they found a way to win that game, and they've gone on a massive heater since then, and that's started our current slide. And we're always searching for why these things are happening, and We've seen the ability, whether it's fright or whatever it is, when we made a coaching change, we saw that bump. But it wasn't just a bump in the record, it was a bump in the play. We were playing more direct hockey, getting pucks behind player or people, making them work 200 feet, getting traffic. You can correlate our slides to too much east-west play, offensive zone turnovers, not making defenders turn. I think if you just look at not the fancy stats, just the normal stats, shots attempted, shots on net, slot shots. When we're in a bad stretch, you go to those stats and they'll tell you why you're in a bad stretch.
I like the fancy stats sometimes of expected goals. We always like that here on this show. But I completely agree with Doug Armstrong. We've talked about this. It kind of reminds me of when he discussed things about Craig Berube leading up to that firing, that it was that Columbus game where he was specifically looking to see if the message that Berube had was resonating with the players and it wasn't matching anymore. That Nashville game, for whatever reason, they weren't able to come together and connect as a group, and they weren't able to really... They had a chance to go 6 points ahead, and then things continued to fall after that. You think it just really affected their confidence, and now it feels like we're talking about the connectivity issues with this group once again.
Yeah, you squandered that lead there potentially, and it's been a rough go of it throughout the schedule. If you look at all these games since the Nashville game, including the Nashville game, they've had 8 games where they've had below 29 shots. The other team opposing them has had 1 game where they've had less than 29 shots against the Blues. It's just the shot disparity that Armstrong's talking about is there. It's a little bit harder to find high danger or slot chances broken down game by game, but essentially you look at every breakdown of, the last 10 games, the last 25 games, the full season, and the Blues are below average, below the 50% mark in every single one of those stats, and that, as Armstrong said, that was the big problem. It was what's the hope that you're taking away from this last stretch of games? There was nothing going into the trade deadline, and now the very first game out of the trade deadline, more disappointment. It's not a great time if you're a Blues fan right now, because even in the future, when you're thinking about it, yeah, sure, Jake Neighbors is there, and all these young guys have potential, but where's the rest of the roster coming from? There's a dozen other spots that have to be filled out that you have to expect to be playing winning hockey in 3 years. Where are those spots coming from?
It just feels like we're going into a soft retool, because I don't think the Blues want to come out and say this is a complete retool that they're going to be looking to. You heard him talk about some of the younger players that are coming up. A soft-ish retool, but you are handcuffed by some big contracts here. So this will be a lot for Doug Armstrong to navigate. That's Rocc, and that's Brunsey, as I just named you today.
Thank you.
Well, hockey segment.
It's a hockey segment, so it works out great.
Feels right.
It does feel right. Coming up, we have Take It or Leave It. So send in your text to the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Whoa.
Here we go. I'm sorry, Brooke. I'm sorry, Brooke. Reset.
Okay.
Sorry. 3, 2, 1, back in the truck.
Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. That is 314-399-YO-HO. We have Take It or Leave It coming up next.
The Blues play on ESPN. The wait is over tonight. Blues and Bruins. Pre-game at 5, puck drop at 6. Shoots, he scores! This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN.
Thanks for calling Toyota. This is Jan.
Hi, Jan. My kids are really excited about spring break, so I'm looking for a new Toyota to help make it amazing.
Now until April 1st is a great time for a new Toyota. Imagine you and the kids in a Tundra on your way
to the lake to go speedboating.
Or even taking a RAV4
to an animal sanctuary to pet goats.
Sounds like your kids aren't the only ones excited about spring break.
Ready, set, go get your Toyota today. Toyota, let's go places. Dealer inventory may vary. See your participating Toyota dealer for details.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here for Universal Windows Direct. As you know, the weather has been up and down. It's like 80 degrees one day, and then it's really cold the next. But where you shouldn't be feeling all of that temperature change is inside your home. So you should call my guys over at Universal Windows Direct to avoid the cold and all the crazy weather changes. And you may be wondering, can windows really make that big of a difference? Here's the thing, they can. Their windows feature super spacer technology, which helps keep the edge of the glass warmer, holds the window seal longer, and makes the windows last up to 5 5 times longer than other window systems. So your windows from Universal, they perform better and they last longer. Call Universal Windows Direct today at 314-334-2522 for your free in-home estimate. And for every 2 windows you buy, you get 2 for free. So buy 2, get 2. Buy 4, get 4. There's really no limit to what you can do there. Plus, they'll upgrade your new windows to triple pane glass for free, and they'll double your energy tax credit. Restrictions apply. Tell them that I told you to call and get an additional $250 off your next project. For the last windows you'll ever need, go to universalwindowsdirect.com, and like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
Joya's Deli is a James Beard award-winning American classic, best known for their famous homemade hot salami sandwiches. Joya's Deli offers unique St. Louis lunchtime catering throughout the metro area with easy online ordering for sandwiches, salads, box lunches, and cookies, ready for delivery to your home or office. Just visit joyasdeli.com. Or if you want to cook at home, our 4 area locations have hot salami, crock pot logs, and more for you to take and bake. Joya's Deli, another award-winning, family-owned local business supported by Kuna Food Service.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN, and BK and Ferrario have you covered. Tune in every Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the latest Blues news as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light for the fans on game day, and by E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. It's time for Take It or Leave It.
Want to say something? Want to put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your Take It or Leave It.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Brooke, Rocc, and Bradford Bruns here, a.k.a. Brunsy, and it is now time for Take It or Leave It. Guys, please don't leave me hanging this time. All right, Air Comfort Service text line. Get your Take It or Leave It text in right now. 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. Speaking of which, somebody texted this in, and I'm going to take this one, but I'm going to put it out to you guys. Take it or leave it. Rock's basically doing what Danny does, and he was just doing that for the Take It or Leave It.
No, leave it. Leave that. We were talking Blues, and I got caught up looking at some game log stats because I was trying to look at some. What were we talking about? High danger chances? Yeah, that's a reasonable excuse. That makes sense considering the conversation. That's what I was doing.
Oh, okay.
When you get lost in the cesspool, that tangent of advanced data analytics, things can happen.
It just happens.
Take it or leave it. So this is coming out of a story from Italy. Lecce have fired their manager, Robert De Versa, after he headbutted an opposing player at the end of their loss to Hellas Verona at the end of the weekend. Here's my thing. I was introduced to soccer via headbutting because the 2006 World Cup, if you guys remember, was when Zinedine Zidane, ironically, or coincidentally, one of the two, headbutted an Italian player during the final of that World Cup. My thing is, take it or leave it. Sometimes you just got to headbutt somebody. I just think, why do you got to fire the guy? You don't know what they said. We found out later after that match that the Italian player said something about Zidane's mother, and actually the Italian people kind of turned on the Italian player despite the fact that they won the World Cup final. I think sometimes you got to headbutt somebody.
I think it depends on the time and place. So I might have to leave it. Because if you do, because the way you phrase it was very in general, that headbutting maybe should be allowed sometimes. I'm going to have to leave it just because of that.
I'm going to take it because sometimes in life, you know what do they say? You need a well-placed expletive, and sometimes you need a well-placed headbutt to boot.
Listen, I'm just going to be 100% honest about this one. Something no one ever tells you is if someone it's hard to punch someone right in the forehead. That's just a little strategy.
That's a weird tactic.
A little strategy note. If there's a reason, is all I'm saying. The headbutt is an underused move, is all I'm saying, Brooke. That should have been my take it or leave.
It's like kissing one off the glass in basketball, though, right?
Exactly.
All right, what do we have on the text line, Bradford?
Let's see. We have actually not, you know what? I'm not sure if I totally approve of this one, but take it or leave it. The only championship that Iowa women's basketball and Caitlin Clark will be able to capture this season is, yes, that Big Ten Conference tournament. I don't know about that.
Ooh.
Take it or leave it.
I mean, I think you're going to have to take it. I mean, mainly because... there's a lot of good teams. Stanford and South Carolina have been ahead of them in the polls the whole year. Obviously, South Carolina is undefeated, so that's a pretty rough go for them, considering you're going up against an undefeated squad. Potentially in South Carolina, I'd be shocked if the Gamecocks aren't in the final overall. So I'll take it on that one because right now, if I had to bet money line, I'd take South Carolina over Iowa.
I think I'm going to have to take it, too, just for the fact of, and look, Caitlin Clark, it seems like nobody can guard her, and she's able to do what she's been able to do this season. But if you're looking at overall team construction and roster and ability, I think you would look at South Carolina.
If South Carolina, I suppose, has enough viable players at the end of the game on the floor, right?
That's
Along with
fair.
LSU.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. Just a little Donnybrook over the weekend. Take it or leave it, guys. Army has already decided on the identity of the new coach for the Blues, and who is it going to be?
The new coach, and who is it going to be? I'm going to take it that they're definitely going to look at some other coaches. And this is nothing against Drew Bannister. I think Drew Bannister has done a great job at Springfield. And
just go ahead and call him a nice guy and just we'll finish out the conversation.
No, that sounds so bad. But maybe this is just not the right move for the Blues moving forward.
Yeah, I think they talked about how open they were going to keep the search throughout the entire season. I think from the get-go there probably wasn't a long-term plan to have Bannister take over for the long term, and I think that hasn't changed much. I will leave it, though. I do not think the selection has been made. I think the Blues probably have a lot more work to do before they find their guy.
To the baseball side from the 314, take it or leave it. The Cardinals' future infield will consist of Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman, Mason Wynn, and, drumroll please, Jordan Walker.
Yeah. Yeah, take it. I mean, I think the only question to that at this point is what is the second base and third base configuration? Is it where's Donnie, where's Gorman? Where's Donnie, where's Gorman? I think Wynn and Walker as your 2026 shortstop and first baseman seems pretty locked in, although I think probably just a 2-year extension for Goldie.
Just a 2-year? You don't think they'll do Waino 1 year and take it year by year?
I'd be more okay with that. There's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. I'm pro 1-year contracts.
Yes, I could see him taking the 2-year. Now, I'm going to have to take it too. Now, when that all happens, I think that's still to be determined. I think we still have a little ways to go.
We have time for one more, do we not? All right.
Yeah,
let's get two more in here.
All right, let's do it. Take it or leave it. The Kate Middleton conspiracy is the new Avril Lavigne conspiracy. You have to fill me in here.
Oh, I'm going to take that because just a quick rundown.
About this one.
We don't have a full hour for conspiracy theory breakdown as much as I would like to. But Avril Lavigne, there's a full belief out there that this is her doppelganger that we currently see. There's a lot of comparisons about how different she looks and how different she acts, and that this is not the real Avril Lavigne. They've also said that about a lot of other celebrities who kind of disappear for a little bit and come back. I'm going to take it because right now, even if Kate Middleton does come forward, I don't think anybody's going to believe that it's her anymore, just because of how wild this has all gotten.
Should I show that I have way too much information on these kind of conspiracy theories? I'm going to leave it because here's why. This is the wrong... You're making the wrong comparison, because the thing is with the Avril Lavigne conspiracy is that the real Avril Lavigne, something horrible happened to her, and that it's a completely different person that we've been seeing since like 2005. I think this is more like John Oliver's theory, which is that the Olsen twins are actually one person that has just been moving very fast their entire career. That's John Oliver's theory, is that there is only one Olsen twin, and that she's just one person.
There's
moving very
pictures
fast,
of them together.
moving very fast, and the press is in on the manipulation. And so because of that part, maybe not so much in on the manipulation because AP called it out. I'm going to say this is more like the Olsen twins theory of John Oliver, which, while ridiculous, I think is very believable.
Is the horrible thing that she got involved with Chad Kroger?
No, the horrible thing is
and you lose touch with reality.
The theory is that she passed away, and that it's a new person who subsumed the Avril Lavigne persona to like keep the record sales and all that stuff rolling for the company or her state, whoever would have been the mastermind behind this conspiracy theory. All I know is I knew that conspiracy theory, and I shouldn't have. I'm disappointed in myself. Let's get one more to wash the palate.
Take it or leave it. Back to the Pucks. Rod Brind'Amour, former Blues legend, will actually be the Noot's next head coach. What do you feel about that?
What? I'm going to have to leave that one. I don't know how I feel about that. What do you feel about that, Rocc?
I mean...
But here's the thing: I feel like anything can happen at this point. Not that I don't like it, but I don't know what to expect, because it is a recycling. We've talked about that with the NHL coaching firings and happenings and all that stuff. They just recycle coaches over and over and over again. But I do believe it needs to be a coach with a veteran presence and has more of the coaching experience at this level.
And I'll be honest, I don't know enough about the Carolina Hurricanes to tell you, well, what went wrong with Rod Brind'Amour? Why was he ousted after 5 years with a very successful coaching record with the Hurricanes? I mean, in full seasons with them, he had 99 points in 18-19, 116 points in 2021-22, and 113 points in his last season in 22-23. And then there were some shorter seasons in between there with COVID and things like that. So, I mean, the stats-wise, yeah, it seems like it would be great. The fact that he has ties to the Blues, St. Louis loves itself some St. Louis. But somebody with more knowledge is going to have to enlighten me as I do my own Google search as well as well, what went so wrong after he had 113
It seemed
points?
like he was well-liked, but then what went so wrong with some of the other coach firings have? Sometimes it's just the fact of a new change coming in.
He won the Jack Adams in 2021, and then he was gone by 2023, so... It's just a little... It's
the NHL.
Yeah, you're right. It's the NHL, and you can't change the whole roster. But again, he did have a 113-point season, so I'm sure there's something there that I'm completely blanking on.
I'll take it because I like it.
The stats on the surface seem fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's something... Am I forgetting something here, Bradford? Did something happen to him in Carolina?
No, frankly, it's just a question of, okay, for how long does that message continue to resonate? And I think at the beginning of this season, guys, as far as the constitution there of the roster, everybody knows that Carolina is wildly talented, but there were ebbs and flows early on in the campaign, and matters seem to have been more than stabilized since then. But you're looking right now for reasons as to why, okay, it would lead to his demise there in Carolina. But based on everything we've seen, the lack of extensive playoff runs, that's what it comes down to at the end. You can have all the success you want in the regular season and in the Eastern Conference at that, but sooner or later you want to take home that hardware. You need to see the hardware to really just solidify everything you've done throughout the regular season.
Take it or leave it. Brunsey is like a human dictionary.
Okay,
I learned so many new... And here's the thing.
He got swept, by the way. And he took them to the conference finals in his first and last year.
Yeah.
Both years he got swept in the conference finals in 19 by Boston and then by the Panthers in 23. So it's playoff extended playoff success. So if that's what you want a guy who can get you 100 points, but not through the playoffs, which that's not like the Blues history isn't rampant with that. Then yeah, sure, sounds great.
That was the otherworldly Kachuk series last season. Give him a pass.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Brunsey, for all the text reading that you did today. And coming up, we're going to take a deeper dive into, I guess, all of these injuries that the Cardinals are dealing with. I know that we're not usually used to this with the Cardinals, but we'll discuss, can they be fully healthy this season, and possibly what this outfield will look like. That's coming up next here on the Opening Drive.
Show off your tourney knowledge by signing up to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge. It's free to enter, and this year's top scorer will take home a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 prize pack. Must be 21 plus and a resident of Missouri or Illinois. See the contest rules and get signed up to play in Bracket Madness now at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And by Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
If you've been injured in a car wreck, you need the best. Onderlaw, voted 2023's best law firm in St. Louis. We know how to handle the insurance companies, and we'll make sure you're compensated for physical, emotional, and financial injuries. Let us make your case our cause. Car accident? Call Onderlaw today for a free review. 314 or 618-9-million. That's 314 or 618-9 all zeros.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. This is the Opening Drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One. A fresh perspective on the day's top stories. It's the Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
So Lars, he does have 2 non-displaced fractures in his rib. The concern is basically he has to get to a point where he's pain-free, and he also has to get to the point where, which could take anywhere from 10 to 14 days, to where he can't have any like traumatic injury to that area. So obviously that's why you won't see him playing in the field, because we don't want him diving. And then of course from a swing standpoint, it's just as tolerated. So over the next course of 10 to 14 days, we'll just monitor, see where he's at, and then at that point we'll know if it's more of a concern for opening day or not. But right now we're going to be patient.
That was Cardinals Pobo John Mozela giving an update on Cardinals outfielder Lars Nootbaar. So here's the thing. Lars Nootbaar has 2 non-displaced rib fractures on his left side. If you guys remember, it was last Saturday. So not this past Saturday, but the Saturday prior. He had that hard fall in the outfield. So now this is something that he's dealing with. It seems like he always gets kind of the wonkiest injuries every single season. Oh, and by the way, now 2/3 of your outfield will likely not be there or available for opening day. I think we can just go ahead and guess here. I know they're not going to come out and say it just yet, but we can just go ahead and guess that you're not going to have Lars Nootbaar available. You're not going to have Tommy Edman available because he's still dealing with his wrist injury that he had, and then his surgery. He's still recovering from that he had back in October. So at this point, we talked about health being such an important thing for the Cardinals going into the season, especially your outfield with everything that happened. How do we feel about this outfield now moving forward? Now, it is important to say that these are just minor setbacks at the moment, we hope, but we know how lingering injuries can continue to happen.
Yeah, it's a rough start. Derek Gould and Lynn Worthy on their best podcast in baseball episode over the weekend, I thought it was a fantastic episode because they really put some of these things in crazy perspective. First of all, I hadn't thought about it this way, but you will now start with only 70% of your starting lineup on opening day that you projected out there.
Not great.
Exactly, Mo, not great. Your starting pitcher, your starting center fielder, and your starting left fielder are now out for opening day. And the way that Lynn and Derek put it on their podcast was that at this point, the most positive you have to be about somebody playing first to start the season is Sonny Gray, not Edman or Nootbaar, which I think puts it in perspective. One, why Mo shouldn't have used the word encouraged, but why he did use the word encouraged after the Sonny Gray injury, because clearly they're not that worried about how long it's going to knock him out, even though it's clearly, I think, taking him out of opening day. So, yeah, you're starting off right off the bat with only 70% of your starting lineup, and it's annoying for Cardinals fans because you cannot get consistency in the outfield. You thought maybe this year was the year that you could finally start off the season and then build on it later with guys like Victor Scott, and now here we are right off the bat wondering, is one of these guys going to have to make an impact as the 4th outfielder right out the gate?
And, Brooke, that's why I'm going to leave well enough alone the pitching side of things for the moment and focus, as Matt said, on the offense in the outfield. Because coming into this season, what was the grand hope? The grand hope was that you would be able to essentially plug and play or ride for 130 games plus the same trio out there. That was the goal, at least for one
like
season.
The Braves, right? Everybody wants to be the Braves.
Minor quibble there. Just a bit of a difference, roster construction. But
of course, but I'm saying health-wise, the fact that they're able to stay so healthy, that is something that I think a lot of Cardinals fans are hoping for. In general, that's what you want to see. You want to see the same guys go out there every single day. We had discussed that a lot last season. And look, there was a lot of injuries, but then there was times where there were so many times where there was mixing around things. And we talked about this season, you have to go in with the same group of guys, given the opportunity to really establish themselves in that position. And you wanted to do that, but now you have that setback. And that's why I'm saying there's a hint of jealousy, at least on my part, on what the Braves are able to do, because their guys are able to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. And especially in the outfield, the hope was that, okay, the talent of a Lars Nootbaar has never been in question, but are you going to see him on the field, for example, for more than 120 games? Okay, Tommy Edman, the defensive...
117 games for him last season.
The defensive bona fides are there. You are going to ride with him. You would think as a nice, not even a bridge, because that would be a bit of an indictment, but until Victor Scott is ready to claim that job on an everyday basis. And now, when 2/3 of your picture, and here we are on March 11th, 2/3 of your picture appears to be entirely murky, Jordan Walker, you're going going to plug him in there, obviously, and roll with that power, continue to see him expand and mature as a hitter. But you were hoping to take some of the guesswork out of the situation. You just wanted that consistency, and we're barely several weeks into spring training. This is where we stand right now.
This is where you stand right now. And here's the thing is, once again, this is mild injuries for Lars Nootbaar and Tommy Edman, but you still have to worry about this because we worry because of what happened last season. We had infielders in the outfield. The whole thing was a giant mess. Health is a big thing for the Cardinals in order to, if we're talking about them getting back to the top of the division, if we're talking about them making it to the playoffs and then maybe having somewhat of a run in the playoffs, health is always going to be the biggest thing. Injuries, of course, are going to happen. It is baseball, but it's always concerning when you have that set plan going in with your outfielders and two guys who maybe are a little bit more injury prone and things are set back. But as I mentioned earlier, I do like seeing younger guys get opportunities. I think Victor Scott is possibly the wild card here. He has a lot of speed, but you do have some guys in front of him. Will they go with Siani possibly? Will they go with Alec Burleson? And then don't forget you have Dylan Carlson out there who, of course, is going to get an opportunity again to be in this conversation. But I think that Victor Scott is knocking on the door. Not just knocking. I think that he's about to smash that door down where you have to maybe give him an opportunity. 94 stolen bases in the minors last season. I want to see that speed. I want to see that aggressiveness up here at the major league level. And it's going to take a minute, but you also have to give him time to adjust. But how much time? How do they balance this with also what they need to do, which is win this season?
Yeah, and I think the big question is going to be, does this reaction jump immediately to how do we solve the problem from center field? Or is Carlson the one that gets the first chance out there? Burleson's been hitting the ton out of the ball. He's almost hitting 400.
But defensively is
in
always
spring
the
training.
question.
But that's the big question, which is you now cannot put out your best defensive and best offensive lineup at the same time. They don't exist. They are going to be two completely different rosters. And by the way, and I think we're gonna get to this with John Denton at 8:45. The other big question of just logistically, if Victor Scott's the move, okay, you got to get him on the 40-man. So who's getting bumped off there? And I think that's just a big question. Jared Young, Jose Fermin, is this the end of Luke and Baker's kind of last-ditch attempt for the Cardinals roster and to make an impact? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's the big question there. So, and that's the thing. Offense, defense, center field, left field, where does this conversation take you? The bottom line is it's going to be a long conversation for the Cardinals.
And that's the thing is that I think that everybody at least wants to see them do the move that will help them win. The aggressive approach, if it's the right move to make, and I understand that contracts play, I understand all that you got to give a lot of guys opportunities, but let the young guys play. If he's doing well in the minors, give Victor Scott an opportunity. I think a lot of people are excited to see what he is able to do. Well, that is our fresh take. Coming up, we're going to hit the celebrity line to talk to Kerbs about the Blues and what in the world is going on, and also if this was the right decision for the Blues to stand pat during the trade deadline and maybe look at a Pavel Buchnevich extension. We're going to discuss that with Kerbs coming up next here on The Opening Drive.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com.
See, the triple cheeseburger at McDonald's isn't just delicious. It's also stacked with 3 100% pure beef patties, seasoned with a pinch of salt and pepper, and topped with all the fixings and 2 slices of melty American cheese. But most importantly, the triple cheeseburger at McDonald's is right in front of me. Ooh, now that's what I'm talking about. Order a tasty triple cheeseburger today for just $2.99, only at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Hey, folks, Chris Kerber with you here. And look, we know, you know, I know, nobody wants to buy an HVAC system. Like, nobody gets up in the morning and go, man, I am so excited. I have to buy an HVAC system today. And frankly, nobody wants to call anybody to have them repaired either. But guess what? It happens. They break down. They're machines. But you need them to make your house comfortable. You need them to keep it warm in the winter. You need that air conditioner to keep it cool in the summer. And when you need help, you need someone you can trust. It's just that simple. Classic Air Care is that company. They offer financing options if you need it. It's not a big deal. They get over to your house. You can book an appointment online. They understand the stress that you're going to feel when the time comes for a repair or even a new system. When they understand that, they know how to take care of you. These guys are amazing. Nick has taken care of my homes 3 times, always get amazing service. That's one of their great Google reviews. You can book an appointment online. You can call them to schedule an appointment. They will get out to you quickly. It's Classic Air Care, from repairs to replacements for all your HVAC needs. Check out the reviews and book an appointment online at classicaircare.com.
Congratulations to John Rudolph from Festus, Missouri. He was just named our 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week. Taking home Blues tickets and a $50 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. 101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, official member of This Bar Bleeds Blue, presented by Bud Light. Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
Bring out the Zamboni!
It's time for Kerbside with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Brought to you by Scott Lee Heating Company, a proud Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Rocc, and Brunsey here. And we go to the celebrity line to talk to Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, radio voice of the Blues. Kerbs, how are you doing today? You are stuck with us today. Randy's on vacation in Arizona, and we'll have Danny Mac back here tomorrow. But sadly, you are stuck with us. Hopefully it's okay.
It's a sunny day. We've had a lot of rain on this road trip. So, Brooke, I'm perfectly fine with that. Today is the last day of this 9-day, really long road trip. So we'll finally head home after the game tonight. So pretty much the day is good.
There you go. It is a good day. Well, we have to get into the trade deadline, of course, Kerbs. The Blues deciding to stand pat. What did you think of the decision that Doug Armstrong made to just stick with this roster for now and write it out for the rest of the season?
Brooke, you know, all the time we talked about this leading up, we nailed it, right? I mean, we said that there's not much that this team can do. There's not much that they're probably going to want to do, because you don't see hockey trades made that, you know, at the deadline very often. And that's what Doug Armstrong is looking for. So from my opinion, and again, we've talked a lot about it leading up to it, there's no surprises. There was a lot of smoke. My understanding is a whole bunch of it was no fire. A lot of rumors, but no substance when it came to the Buchnevich rumors that were going around, the Parayko ones, whatever ones that you heard. And Doug Armstrong looked at it in a couple ways. If you look at the return that a lot of player teams were getting, there were a lot of like 4th, 5th round picks getting moved around, right? You had a couple of your big ones. I get it, the Hurdle deal and the Gensel deal, but those are special moments, and those are different kinds of trades. And I think Doug just looked at it and says, look, yeah, we're a little ways out now. It's going to be tough, but I'm just going to even stick with the 3 UFAs that we have right now and see if they can help us get back into the fight. And so not really all that shocked with what happened with the St. Louis Blues. And even as Doug said in his presser, and I did an interview with him, by the way. It's up on the Kerbside Reaction podcast, one-on-one interview, and he answered some great questions about, like, the culture of this team, the fact that this team has played similarly under 2 head coaches, and how that speaks more about the players in the room rather than the coaching. And he got into a lot of that. So not really shocked with what happened.
Kerbs, how much do you think, though, the trade deadline was affected by the poor play in the last 2 weeks? And Armstrong alluded to that, and that, you know, they didn't help out the value. Do you think this could have been different, maybe from the Blues' perspective or from the rest of the NHL's perspective, had the Blues been winning these last 10 games since Nashville instead of losing as often as they have?
Well, Matt, I think what would have made it different is the Blues might have even been willing to add a piece. Maybe not a big piece, but I think they might have been willing to add a piece if they were still closer to the fight. So to me, I think that's really the only difference that'll make. I mean, like if you look around, when you look at the trade of like Eric Johnson, right? And I put kind of Marco Scandella in that realm with Eric Johnson. When you're talking about getting a fifth-round pick back, right? And sometimes it was even a conditional one. Beyond the fourth round, beyond the third round, actually, the fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds, and Doug said this, like there's not a huge difference in picks between the fourth and the seventh in terms of analytically the success of that player coming into your roster and making your team, right? So, and then if you draft a guy like that, you're talking about them playing junior college hockey for the next 2-3 years. Then they're probably in the minors for a couple of years. I mean, you're really not looking at somebody impacting your roster for 4 or 5 years. And so I think they just looked at it, and you're right. Even had they won some more games and been a little closer to the fight, you wouldn't have seen subtractions, but you might have seen, 1 or 2 additions.
I thought another interesting comment that Doug Armstrong was discussing was he was talking about Pavel Buchnevich. Obviously, we looked at all the trade rumors. As you mentioned there, a lot of smoke there, no fire. But he didn't seem opposed to a contract extension with Pavel Buchnevich. What do you think about that possibility and what that extension could look like?
Well, first off, I mean, that extension can't happen until the summertime per the CBA. And this was my reasoning on the Pavel Buchnevich rumors all along, right? I didn't buy into any one of them because it just didn't make sense. Now, if you're Doug Armstrong, if somebody's going to call and make you an offer for one of your players, you have to listen, right? I mean, maybe somebody gets stupid and asks and offers you just a crazy deal. But you're talking about a player that's, 28. He'll be 29 at the end of this season. He'll be 30 at the end of this season next year. He's a high-quality player that can get 70 to 80 points a season if the team is going well. He can play the power play. He can penalty kill. He gets you shorthanded points. I mean, this is a heck of a hockey player. And if you're going to have a turnaround that's going to take 2 or 3 years, which is what Doug stated last year and what was the whole plan when they decided to go ahead and break from the Perrons, the O'Reillys, the Barbashevs, and those guys, you're talking about a scenario, Brooke, where Pavel Buchnevich is one of those guys that can help you do that. And when he's looking for players in that 24 to 28 range, you got one. So for me, and the cap is going to go up a little bit, so they're going to have the room to sign him to an extension. I think when they have those talks, they'll get that figured out, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not Pavel wants to stay a part of the St. Louis Blues when that time comes, because I think he's a very big part of what this team can be moving forward, and they need that player. So I think he's absolutely open to extending this guy.
Obviously, a big part going forward is going to be a lot of the play of these young players. Obviously, Jake Neighbors has been impressive this season. Another young player who's kind of had some ups and downs has been Scott Perunovich, and I was focusing on him in the Rangers game, and I kind of wish I wouldn't have Kerbs. It wasn't a great game for him, obviously not a great game for the Blues overall, but just what have your thoughts been on Scott Perunovich's season so far?
I think he's been okay. I mean, you can see that he's got, ability in that offensive end a little bit. For the most part, been pretty healthy. I don't anticipate him being in the lineup today, to be honest with you. Now, I'm not at the rink yet. We'll get to the rink for the morning skate. It'll be at 11 o'clock here Eastern time because they called up Matt Kessel. And I really like what we saw from Matt Kessel when he was in that lineup. So maybe you see Perunovich in the lineup and it's a Scandella that's scratched. Maybe it's Kessel that's in for Perunovich, but I think he's just been okay. I think you've seen some of the challenges that he has from a size standpoint in heavier games. But in fairness to him, when you're talking about somebody that hasn't played 70 NHL games yet, it's a hard position to learn, and you've got to figure out the timing and what it's like to go around each of these buildings your first full time in the league. So I think he's been okay, but I don't think he's really jumped off the page and said, man, you've got something here that you want to like a future star. I think there's a lot of room for growth, and he's got to keep proving himself.
Last question from us, Kerbs. I want to ask you about the Blues going into this game tonight against the Boston Bruins. Things have not exactly been great for the Blues going into this one. The losers of 3 straight during their 5-game road trip. What are you expecting tonight against the Bruins? And you get to see a familiar face in Montgomery.
Well, familiar face in Montgomery and Pat Maroon as well, who was acquired at the deadline. Kind of cool. You got 2 St. Louisans on this team, and Trent Frederick and Pat Maroon. I think that's great. I'm actually really curious, Brooke, about one scenario, and looking forward to talking to Drew Bannister about this. I don't know if you guys saw the Minnesota-Nashville game yesterday. First off, those 2 teams have had like 35 fights, and the stat is like 35 fights in their last 15 games or something like that, head-to-head. It was just intense. It was fantastic. But at the end of the game, they go to overtime. Minnesota pulled their goaltender in overtime to make it a 4-on-3, and they scored and they won. The interesting part about that rule, and you wonder, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't more teams do it? If Nashville had scored into the empty net that Minnesota had left open, Minnesota would lose that point that they had for getting into overtime. That's the tweak there. But instead they said, well, we're going to try to make it a 4-on-3 and score and make sure we earn that second point rather than take a chance or maybe go to the shootout. I'm fascinated to see, like, if this game were to go to overtime tonight, if the Blues try that in order to try and make sure that you try to get that extra 2 points and how that goes. So I have no idea what we're going to see on the ice. That's been the enigma of this team all season long. One game to the next, you just don't know what that game is going to present or which team is going to show up. I know that they're going to play hard. I know the guys care. I can tell you that. I know that especially some of these veterans are frustrated. But I'm actually real fascinated to see if this game goes to overtime, if we see the Blues try that a couple times. It's been a long time since we've seen a team in the league try that. And so now that the Minnesota Wild kind of put that back on the front burner plate of people's minds, I'm curious if the Blues would pull it off.
Great stuff as always, Kerbs. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your trip.
All right, guys, going to go dump some tea into the harbor and see if we can't rile some people up today.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining us, Kerbs. You can also check out Chris Kerber on his Kerbside podcast. And the Blues facing the Bruins tonight at 6 p.m. Pre-game is at 5. Coming up next, we have the fight. And, guys, I'm a little nervous. Anytime that I have to fill in for Megamind, it's
I'll fill in.
Let's just say that it's a little intimidating. No, I'm stepping up to the plate today.
You're going to do the fight.
I'm doing the fight today. I'm mentally prepared to do the fight today because I have to, okay? I have to, guys. Very, very big shoes to fill. I was thinking about bringing some grapes because I think there's some correlation between Randy Grapes and all of his success he's had. So if you want to fight me, text in right now to the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646, 314-399-YOHO. The fight coming up next.
March Mayhem is almost here. Selection Sunday is just a few days away, and all the madness of March is starting up next week on 101 ESPN. Who's making a run? What upsets await? Hear all the madness on 101 ESPN.
Courtesy of AAA Home Services, your independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. Visit AAASTL.com.
And see the entire March Mayhem schedule now at 101ESPN.com.
Auto Center's Nissan Herculaneum. They've got over 700 vehicles all in one location. You can start at AutoCentersNissan.com. You can peruse the vehicles that they have right there online and then head out to Auto Center's Nissan Herculaneum and you can test drive new vehicles. How about a new Nissan Altima up to $4,000 off MSRP? Finance for only $499 down and only $499 a month for 84 months. It's not a lease, and that offer is good throughout the month of March. They got great deals on other vehicles as well, not just new Nissans. They have
can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
This is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One. Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Kerber.
Good morning, St. Louis, and welcome back into the opening drive here on 101 ESPN and 101ESPN.com. I'm Matthew Rocchio, joined in studio right now by Bradford Bruns, and soon to be joined in studio by your fighter today, stepping in for Megamind, Brooke Grimsley. The Grim Reaper is going to be your fighter today for the station, but on the phone lines, Average Joe today, Nathan from Rolla. Nathan, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How's it going?
Going great, going great. Have you done the fight before?
So I fought the Bearded Brain last year, and it was the chess questions and the mascot questions you gave me. So I got my butt whooped by the Bearded Brain.
I remember that fight. That was a really good fight. You get a more normal one today, I will say that. So I'm glad we could get you on, Nathan, for a more normal version of the fight. Though I noticed, have you tried to take on Randy? Because you took on the Bearded Brain, Kerry Davis. You're taking on the Grim Reaper, Brooke Grimsley. Are you avoiding Megamind?
Actually, I think you're avoiding me fighting the Megamind, which might be a little confidence booster for me. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get Randy.
There we go. All right, Bradford, mark the number. We're going to have this guy fight Randy at some point soon. All right, Nathan, are you ready for your fight today?
I am. I'm not going to lie. I'm rooting for. If I lose, it's like, you know what? She deserves it. So I'm good to go.
There you go. It's silver linings, all good outcomes. Let's get right into it. Question number one. Chris Jones and the Chiefs have reached an agreement on a massive contract extensions. Jones may have tied for the team lead in sacks last season, but can you name the Kansas City Chiefs all-time leader in sacks? Is it Tamba Hali, Neil Smith, or Derek Thomas?
No, that's a good one. It's fair. Because I see what you did there a little bit. That's a tough one because, NHL is more my thing. But when it comes to the NFL, I mean, I do love it, do pay attention. And the only thing that's really coming to my mind has got to be the Tom Onley. Like, it's got to be. Because the other names, just that particular, that's my head first off.
All right, question number two.
Nathan, you're in luck because we are going to the rink. So, Nathan, with the New Jersey Devils terminating head coach Lindy Ruff on Monday, that makes him the 7th NHL coach actually to be dismissed this season. So, before Lindy Ruff, who was the most recent, the last NHL coach to be fired in the 2023-24 season?
Go ahead and give me the options.
Yes, and your options are none other than Lane Lambert, DJ Smith, and Todd McClellan.
Ooh, of course, I had to say that I'm good with hockey, which I am. It's usually players and stats. So coaches, that's a good one. Can you repeat the answers real quick?
Absolutely. You have Lane Lambert, DJ Smith, or Todd McClellan.
I say McClellan.
Final answer?
Final answer.
All right, number three. Our town's Jason Tatum and the Celtics currently sit atop the NBA standings with a 49-14 record. Last season, which team finished with the best overall mark with 58-24? Was that the Denver Nuggets, the Milwaukee Bucks, or the Boston Celtics?
Milwaukee's Bucks. Final answer.
Question number four.
Confident with that one. Like it. All right, Nathan. Last but not least, only two skaters in Blues history have scored 10 career hat tricks. Brett Hull is one with an unmatched 27 hatties. Name the other. You have Bernie Fedorko, Vladimir Tarasenko, or Brian Sutter.
Ooh. Oh, good. I really don't think that's Cinco. Back to Cinco. And there's been similar questions on this one. My gut says Bernie because I know he had a lot of them. And when there was a Hall question, I don't know, a few weeks ago, that kind of came up. But Sutter, I don't think Sutter had that many. I'm sure there's people screaming at me on the radio right now. I got to go with Federico, the 24. That's my favorite number. That's this year. I'm going with it. It's Bernie Federico, final answer.
All right.
All right. We will double-check our score, and then we will bring in Rocc Grimsley, the Grim Reaper, as I like to call her. Nathan, how do you think you did today?
50-50.
About 50-50? Well, your math's not terrible. It's not great, but your math's not terrible. Are you feeling confident going up against the Grim Reaper here?
I honestly could see myself tying her just because I think the ones I got she might actually be able to get to. So this might be a sudden death or overtime fight today. We'll see.
There you go. Okay, I like that. Rocc Grimsley now joining us back in studio. Grimmer, you heard his comments there. How are you feeling about this fight?
I just walked in, and I feel like we're about to have a battle now. Who am I speaking to?
Speaking to Nathan from
Nathan,
Rolla.
Hey, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you today? How was the bachelor party minus the hospital stuff?
Oh, the hospital stay, that was interesting, but other than that, it was fantastic. Had a blast, and now Randy's over in Arizona having his own. You think he's going to do his own little bachelor party down there?
I mean, a little bit, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of golf. They're seeing a lot of sports. It's a pretty, I mean, if you took Randy's itinerary for this week and said it was a bachelor party, I'd want to be on that bachelor party.
I'm going to send him my itinerary and say he can go all those spots.
Matches up, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Rocc, are you ready for the fight?
I am.
Now, I just are you doing it Randy style? Or are you
okay,
getting
you're
the
making
options?
me very nervous right now.
I gotta ask.
I'm going to attempt to do it Randy style.
Okay.
But maybe 2 times I get the options.
We're going to give you 2 options? All right, 2 options for Rocc. We'll do it that way. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, number 1. Chris Jones and the Chiefs have reached an agreement on a massive contract extension. Jones may have tied for the team lead in sacks last season, but can you name the Kansas City Chiefs' all-time leader in sacks?
All time. Okay. I know that Smith was up there, but I think it's going to be the late great Derek Thomas, is it not? Because he has over 100 with the Chiefs.
I cannot confirm nor deny. Is that your final answer?
Well, I'm trying to get something out of you.
No, you're not.
I don't get like a wink, maybe.
Don't know. I play poker this weekend. I'm locked in.
Yeah,
Look at that
that's
poker
it. Okay,
face.
final answer. Yeah, final answer. Derek Thomas.
Okay, question number 2, Rocc. With the New Jersey Devils firing head coach Lindy Ruff on Monday, that makes him actually the 7th NHL coach to be fired in the 2023-24 season. Pre-Ruff, before Lindy Ruff, who was the last head coach who was dismissed at the NHL level this year.
Well, there's been quite a few.
The most recent, before Ruff.
Most recent. Okay. You had the Senators. Get rid of theirs. You had the Kings. It was the Kings because they had a really bad January, and I think that. But then there's been so many. There's been so many. I know. Here's one thing I know. It's not Berube because there was several more after that. Okay, this could be one of my options. You can give me options on this one.
Okay, here we go. You have Lane Lambert, DJ Smith, or Todd McClellan.
McClellan, Kings. That was the last one.
I mean,
final answer.
What do you expect? The guy's got to, pitch relief for the Cardinals and then turn around and become a hockey coach? Ridiculous. I mean, the expectations are unrealistic. Question number 3. Our town's Jason Tatum and the Celtics currently sit atop the NBA standings with a 49-14 record. Last season, which team finished with the best overall mark in the NBA of 58-24?
The Celtics also were good last year.
But were they the best, bro?
And then your team, the Nuggets.
They won the championship, but were they the best in the regular season?
Choices.
But then you had the Bucks. You have Giannis and the Bucks.
They play a little basketball.
They do, and they played basketball really well, especially during the regular season.
Before D. Lillard was there.
I'm between the Nuggets and the Bucks here. I want to say it wasn't the Nuggets, though, that finished. But I think that they were close behind. So I'm going to go, I think it was the Bucks.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Brooke, keep those skates on because for question number 4, we have only 2 skaters in Blues history have notched 10 career hat tricks. Brett Hull is one. He has an unmatched 27 of them all time.
Ridiculous.
Name the other. So at least 10 career hat tricks in a Blue Note uniform.
I feel like there's always a good answer to this one, considering that somebody is at the top of these. It seems like every single time. But can you give me the options just in case?
I can. You have none other than Bernie Federko, Vladimir Tarasenko, or Brian Sutter.
I'm going to go with Bernie. It seems like Bernie's always the answer.
Final answer?
That is going to be my final answer.
All right, Matt, we've got a barn burner on our hands today.
Do you want to gild the lily here, or should I? Take it away, Bradford Runs.
You love to start the week with a back-and-forth affair.
Yes.
Nathan brought it, no doubt about it, from Rolla this morning.
He wants like a full... Is it going to be a sudden death showdown? Are we going tiebreaker?
Brooke stepped in with confidence as well, and she said, no, I'm not going maybe full Randy, but I'm going to do my very best to eschew those options as well. But there can only be one victor on this Monday, March the 11th. Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis. With the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Nathan,
just win, baby.
Tremendous effort. Thank you, Matt. Tremendous effort. You correctly answered 3 questions today, but Brooke pulling off the clean sweep. How about that? By the score of 4-3. Let's go through these particular answers, shall we? From the top, Chris Jones, as we know, late Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken, and the Chiefs reach an agreement. Big 5-year contract extension. Jones, he tied for the team lead last year with 10.5 sacks. But Casey's all-time leader, as you correctly identified, Brooke, it was Derek Thomas with over 100, indeed 126.5 sacks. Nathan, that was the question that actually tripped you up, good sir. So let's move it on.
But what did he pick?
As a matter of fact, Nate, you were really vacillating there on Tamba Ali, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was back and forth.
Yeah.
It was just, there's a lot of Jones and a lot of Thomases everywhere. So it just kind of, it got in my head. I got in my own way.
And Tamba is, for the record, top 5 all time for,
that's what I was thinking.
The Chiefs' career sack list. So valiant choice there. Let's go to the rink for number 2. We know that Lindy Ruff of the Devils released from his duties as the head coach there. But prior to Lindy Ruff, who was the most recent NHL head coach to be determined, that was none other than Todd McClellan of the Los Angeles Kings.
So many,
yes.
Formerly of the Cardinals as well.
There you go. Can't forget that one. Both of you answered that correctly. So moving on to the association, Jason Tatum and the Celtics. Big win Saturday night over the Phoenix Suns, upping that mark to 49-14 this season. But last year, the team that finished with the best overall mark, 58-24, Matt, that second half surge of the Milwaukee Bucks to take the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Denver was just a few games back in the West, but Nathan as well as Brooke, both of you nailed that one too. And finally, we have the 2 players in Blues history, at least 10 career hat tricks. Brett Hull, let's just say, has put a bit of distance between himself and the rest of the pack with 27. But was it Vladdy Tarasenko, Brian Sutter, or Bernie Federko to be part of that double-digit club?
It's always Bernie.
It's always Bernie.
It's always
just answer Bernie.
There is one thing that I've learned with the fight is that typically he's going to be up there.
When in doubt, you have to roll with Bernie Federko. 11 hat tricks for Bernie. Yes, Vladimir a bit down on the list. Gary Unger, actually number 3 all-time, and then Brian Sutter a couple behind that. So Nathan, tremendous job today, sir. 4-3 final, and in due time, when Megamind is back on the premises, we're going to get you back on the show for the fight. Great job, sir, and have a tremendous week.
Thank you, guys. Good job, Brooke. They'll let you know I was rooting for you, and I knew it was either going to be we were going to go to sudden death or you were going to win. But do me a favor and tell Randy I'm going to study, and I eat grapes too.
There you go.
There it is. Great job, Nathan.
Grapes are the key. Thank you so much, Nathan, and thank you guys for everything with the fight. I was so nervous. I'm still nervous right now because Randy is Megamind, and I'm just here. I'm the Grim Reaper. I try my best. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's not. Who knows? Because that's what the Grim Reaper does. Well, coming up next, we are going to have, I was about to say rush hour reset, but we are actually going to talk to John Denton, MLB.com Cardinals beat writer, about all the injuries that the Cardinals are updating. Plus, there's an update coming out today about Sonny Gray. We'll talk to John Denton about it next, coming up here on the Opening Drive.
Take the fast lane home weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. with Anthony Stalter, Jamie Rivers, and Gary Davis on 101 ESPN. 2 former pros and 1 average Joe. The fast lane is driven by Scrap Mart Metals Recycling.
Open up your 101 mobile app for your chance to win free tickets to the Outlaw Music Festival. Featuring Willie Nelson and Family, Bob Dylan, John Mellencamp, and Southern Avenue on September 8th at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Get all the ticket details and get entered to win those free tickets for the Outlaw Music Festival right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the Opening Drive on 101 ESPN.
Welcome back to the Opening Drive. Brooke, Rocc, and Bradford Bruns here, a.k.a. Brunsy. And we go to the celebrity line to talk to Cardinals beat writer for MLB.com, John Denton. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Sorry, I was a little distracted there, but thanks for having me.
Oh, what's going on?
No, we're outside the media room and getting ready for Ollie Marmol's session coming up in about 20 minutes, and then Sonny Gray's going to throw his first live and hurting his hamstring. He's going to do that at 10:30 East Coast time, 9:30 St. Louis time. So looking forward to that. Kind of going through his first test, and since he hurt that hamstring, and really get a gauge on the pain level and how far along he is after suffering that injury.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, because as you mentioned there, that news just coming out this morning. So that seems like that's at least encouraging that we'll have that happen today. And of course, with all the chaos of that news coming out, you were able to do a story and talk to Sonny Gray specifically about how he has dealt with this in the past. But I thought it was interesting in your article on MLB.com that he had mentioned that because of the past injuries, he actually knew what to look for sooner so that he didn't have this linger longer into the season.
Yeah. He suffered 2 hamstring injuries back in 22 when he was pitching for the Twins, and he said, back then he felt a little bit of a twinge, and he said, I can get through that, and he threw 4 or 5 more pitches and got through the inning, and as it turns out, after he got the dugout, he's like, oh boy, I probably shouldn't have done that, and made it worse. This time, as soon as he felt the twinge, his first thought was 2022. He went through that twice, and he said, that right there probably saved him from this being a bad injury because he stopped right away. He didn't try to be a tough guy. He didn't try to impress his new teammates. He stopped right there. And the Cardinals are hopeful that, it was really just a mild strain and that he caught this before it got worse and he didn't make it worse. And he was able to throw from 60 feet, I think 4 or 5 days ago. He threw from 120 feet 2 days ago. And, I just saw him this morning going through he's got a very extensive stretching routine, arm care routine that he's going through. And like I said, we'll get to see him go off the mound St. Louis time at 9:30, 10:30 here on the East Coast.
And not the only injury, obviously, we're talking about with the Cardinals. Of course, Tommy Edman now doubtful for opening day, and the status for Lars Nootbaar following the 2 rib fractures is also a little bit unclear for opening day. So the changes are going to have to happen in the outfield. And the big thing we're talking about, and that you're talking about also on MLB.com, is the balance of offense and defense that the Cardinals were looking for in the outfield and how they get it now. You mentioned Michael Ciani. Obviously, Victor Scott is a huge talking point in this spring. Dylan Carlson has been somebody that the Cardinals fans have been waiting to break out for years. How do you see the Ciani, Victor Scott, Carlson kind of battle going on now that there is 2 spots open in the outfield to start the season?
Well, I think Dylan Carlson's going to be your opening day center fielder. He's a guy that they trust. I think if he got playing time and he produced as a hitter, I think Dylan Carlson could be a Gold Glove center fielder. He is that good. He always gets a good jump. He takes great routes. He's a very heady player with, very good baseball IQ. His father was a high school coach for 30 years. He's a guy who grew up in the game. So I think he'll be the opening day center fielder. I think Alec Burleson's going to win that job in left. So far, he leads the Cardinals with 9 hits this spring. They really were blunt with him. They were honest with him this offseason. They told him, you need to get better. You need to lose weight. You need to be somebody we can trust in the outfield. And, he's come back. He's taken that serious. And like I said, he's hitting 375 so far. He's got 9 hits in 10 games. It looks like he's probably going to be your opening day left fielder if Lars can't make it back. I mean, Lars is the most positive, encouraging, guy ever. And I asked him twice about playing at Dodger Stadium. The kid that he grew up, the field that he grew up as a kid dreaming about playing on. And he said, I've got to be smart. I can't push this. I can't make this a 6-week injury, by trying to come back too soon. So Victor Scott is very encouraging. The Cardinals have really tried to pump the brakes on him. They feel like he needs another year in AAA. But I think at some point this season, Victor Scott's going to come up. He's going to factor in on this team. Ciani's a guy they trust defensively, but if I had to say right now, I think Dylan Carlson and Alec Burleson will be your 2 starters in the outfield with Jordan Walker on opening day.
Is there a path for Victor Scott to be on this team before June, or is that kind of just a fan, kind of pie in the sky idea at this point?
I think it was pie in the sky before spring training, but now I think it's much more real. 1, because of the way he's played. 2, because of the way he's handled himself. I mean, this kid's 23, but you would think he's 35. He's so mature. He's so comfortable in his own skin. He just oozes confidence. And it's something to see the way he's messing with pitchers. When he gets on base, like he has them, he's totally in their heads. I think he's stolen 4 bases, and 3 of them were without even a throw. He had a stand-up triple. I don't think they want him to make the opening day roster, but I do think we will see him before the temperatures hit 100 in St. Louis, come August.
Also, another player, a young player that we're starting to see a lot more of, and I think has been impressing a lot of fans, is Thomas Saggese. Obviously, a huge day for him yesterday, but he's done pretty well so far this spring training. Now, it seems like there's not a position for him currently, but is he another young player that could force himself into this conversation a little bit more this season, or is he another one where you would say a year from now?
Yeah, Brooke, he is something else. He's, he doesn't wear batting gloves. He's a small little guy, and you're kind of unimpressed with him. And when you talk to him, he's kind of wishy-washy, and he's from Carlsbad, just north of San Diego. He's kind of a surfer dude a little bit. He's very chill. But then he says, the one thing I am confident about in life is when I step in that box, I know I can hit whoever's throwing the ball. And, I mean, he oozes confidence when he's in the box. He hits everything hard. He gets barrels on it. He hits the other way. He can hit for power. I mean, this guy was, 2 or 3 home runs away from winning the Triple Crown last year in Double-A. He was a Texas League MVP. I think he had a 3-home-run game or 2-home-run game when he went to Memphis when he made it to Triple-A. And, some of these guys, Albert Pujols 24 years ago, they just forced their way. They're so good that they make you speed up the projections. I think Jordan Walker was a year ahead of schedule. I think he shocked the Cardinals last year that he was so far ahead of schedule. And I think they're seeing now that Victor Scott and Thomas Saggese are kind of ahead of schedule, and they're forcing the subject.
John, you also talked about in your recent article about the Cardinals' defensive outfield projections, the play of Jordan Walker, and people have been talking a lot now about him staying down in Florida and working the entire offseason with Jose Oquendo to work on his defensive play. Obviously, you have the play off his glove on Sunday that kind of mars your mindset when you look at what he's done, but your thoughts this spring on how Jordan Walker's looking defensively, especially compared to the last month or two of last season?
Yeah, I think that was one of the stories of spring training, actually. The fact that it shows you how serious Jordan Walker is about his craft, that he didn't just come down to Jupiter a couple times and work out with Jose Oquendo. He bought a house down here. He wanted to work out with him 5 days a week. He wanted multiple coaches and instructors to lay eyes on him, to tell him what to do. He's made more progress in the outfield. He's more comfortable. He's getting to his spots. The ball yesterday was, it was wind blown, but in the major leagues, that has to be caught. There's no doubt about it. There's no ifs, ands, and busts. Jordan will tell you that himself. That ball has to be caught. But it was one of those cases where he kind of got into drifting instead of running to the spot and then making the catch. So I think the wind caught him off guard. He is better. He's going to be better defensively. He's too smart. He's too gifted. I've said it all along. Like, he was built in a baseball factory almost. It seems like 6'6", 259. His father went to MIT. His mother went to Harvard and watched you. Like, this kid is too good, too talented to not be a star, and he's going to figure this out in the outfield. I'm convinced of it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, John, and we'll look for updates on your social media account for what Ollie Marmol has to say about Sonny Gray. And thank you so much for enjoying us and joining us. I always enjoy talking to you, so I put that out there, John. So thank you for joining us, and we enjoyed it. How about that?
It's my Tennessee twang that Brooke loves. That's what it is.
Of course. Thank you so much, John. Well, that is John Denton of MLB.com, the Cardinals beat writer. Coming up, we have our Rush Hour Reset. And guys, I have a possible extension that I'm going to throw out to you guys for Pavel Buchnevich, and I want you to tell me if you're going to take it or you're going to leave it. We're going to discuss that coming up next here on The Opening Drive.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird report. More tough injury news for the Cardinals outfield. On Friday, it was announced that Lars Nootbaar has 2 non-displaced rib fractures on his left side following a hard fall in the outfield. Nootbaar will have a period of 10 to 14 days where he can swing the bat but will have limited work otherwise. Cardinals are now dealing with the possibility that they'll be missing 2/3 of their starting outfield for opening day, with Tommy Edman still recovering from wrist surgery. In the Cardinals' Sunday afternoon game yesterday against the Marlins, Thomas Saggese was the story of the day for the Cardinals, going 4 for 4 with 6 RBI off the bench, helping the Cardinals beat the Marlins 12-8. Your Redbirds are back in action today against the Nationals. First pitch is at 12:05 with Miles Michaelis on the mound.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Hit
it out of the park this baseball season at DraftKings at Casino Queen. Book DraftKings at Casino Queen's Stay and Play Cardinals Hotel Package. This Grand Slam bundle includes one-night hotel stay, 10% off casino dining, 2 St. Louis Cardinals tickets, and free shuttle service to the game starting at just $149. Call 618-874-5000 to book today. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Based on availability, restrictions apply.
The NCAA men's basketball tournament tips off next week, and you can join 101 ESPN next Thursday and Friday for all of the first round action. Join PK and Ferrario and the Fast Lane live from Cybergs in O'Fallon, Illinois next Thursday, and Helen Fitzgerald's next Friday. Come enjoy some food, a cold Bud Light, 101 giveaways, plenty of screens to watch all the games and more with PK and Ferrario and the Fast Lane live from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get more details at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Hear every St. Louis Blues game right here. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Bruins play host to Blues. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns, and this SportsCenter update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The second best squad in the Eastern Conference takes on St. Louis tonight as the Noot will bring to a close a 5-game road trip. The puck drops on 101 ESPN at 6 p.m. Saturday in the Big Apple. The Blues fell to the Rangers for Zep Baseball. Afternoon spring training action in the Sunshine State pits the Cardinals versus the Nationals just past the top of the 12 o'clock hour. The SportsCenter update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One. We're recapping the biggest sports stories of the day on the opening drive with a rush hour reset.
He's eligible for a contract extension on July 1st, and there's no real rush for us. We're going to play the season out. Obviously, he's been nothing but a pleasant player since he's been here. He's been a top player for us. He performs well every night. He's a player that has stature in the league and stature on our team, and so he's a valuable piece of our team right now. And in July, we can sit down with he and his representative and make sure that he wants to be here and we can work something out.
That is Blues General Manager Doug Armstrong talking about Pavel Buchnevich. And here's the thing. to me, I think it's very clear that he is willing and open to a contract extension with Pavel Buchnevich. One, I'm a big fan of Buchnevich. I like the energy that he brings. I know that sometimes it's been an up and down season for him this year and that he's had some injuries in the past, but I really like what he brings to that top line. I like the chemistry he has with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Now, what this contract extension will exactly look like is going to be the big question here, because he is 30 years old currently. No, he's 28 years old. Why did I think he was 30 years old?
He just seems like he would be.
Oh, okay, there you go. He is 28 years old, but this contract extension, if we are talking about a lengthy one, would go into his age 30 year and a little bit more after that. I'm going to throw out a theoretical out there for you guys. Let's just say he's right now bringing a very reasonable $5.8 million annual average. What if you did 8 years, $8 million? What if that is the asking price for Pavel Buchnevich? Are you doing that if you're Doug Armstrong?
No, I'm leaving that one if I'm Doug Armstrong. And if I'm Doug Armstrong, I just called him a pleasant player. He performs well. Yeah, that's good for a $6 million cap hit. That's good for even maybe a $6.5 million cap hit. $8 million. You're starting getting to the point where I need a little bit more than a pleasant player who performs well. I need a dominant player who changes your club. That's what you need to get if you're the Blues. That's why you gave Kyrou and Thomas their extensions, because you thought those players could be that level, and you've been right about half of it so far. But I think 8x8 for a guy that old, you need to know that he's raising the level of your team, not just your top line. And there's a big line between those two things.
That's a great point. And you do look at the age. You look at the production that you've been able to see him accrue in a Blues uniform. He's 28. Is there room for more offensive upside, more offensive growth? I think there is a discussion that can be had. But, Matt, you're right insofar as if you were allocating that much money, if you're talking about upwards of $8 million AAV, what have you, you're talking about somebody who has to be a transformative presence on that top line night in and night out. And with all due respect, this season, I think we have seen the overall production of a Pavel Buchnevich come back just a little bit relative to what our expectations were entering this very campaign.
I still think that he can be a difference maker for this team. And so 8 years, $8 million, yes, that is a little steep. I would not be surprised, though, if that is at least possibly what he would be looking for. Isn't that what every player is looking for, is the 8 years, $8 million? Now, I do think, though, that he's still going to be asking in that price range of $7.5 to $8 million. I would not be surprised if he's asking for that. It's the years that is going to be the big issue here. Now, okay, let's knock it down a notch. Would you do 5 years? He's 28 years old.
I'm going to go with no. I just think, because I'm trying to imagine what Buchnevich gives you in year 4 and 5, and at the same time, contract gets a little bit better every year because the salary cap in the NHL is now actually going up again post-COVID. So $8 million gets a little bit better each year. I just think even 5 years is just too long for me, just because those last years are going to be rough. It's not going to be tradable. I think you trade him next year at the deadline or this year in the offseason, and I think maybe the mindset's a little bit different. The deadline's a little bit different. Maybe you can still get a second rounder. I think that's better than letting him walk after next year. I think it's better than tying you into a high-level second liner into first-line money. I think that's where you start making trouble. I think that's where they got into problems with the defense, is you started paying second-pairing defensemen like their first-pairing defensemen, and now look at where you're at, contractually on that side of the blue line.
Yeah, precisely. You're playing that perpetual game of catch-up, if you will. And I understand up front, it's a totally different scenario. You would love to be able to plug him in and say, this is the guy with whom we're riding on the top line for years to come. But if you're talking about 4, if you're talking about 5 years, that's really an insane commitment in terms of the overall length of the contract, when, Matt, as you stated, that is exactly the conundrum, the biggest conundrum this team still faces. If you want to discuss roster construction or roster constitution issues here, right now, the fact that you have so many rigid pieces on that back line, the blue line, is precisely why there isn't that flexibility to enable you to maybe take some more chances up front, to retain a Buchnevich, etc., tying yourself yourself into that at that number, it's a huge, huge risk. I just don't know if it's practical given the constraints under which this team is operating.
Here's the thing is that I don't think it's out of the question that he will be getting possibly around that range of $7.5 to $8 million, or maybe even just a tad bit more than that if the year's a little bit less. If it's 5 years, I'm taking that if I'm the Blues. So from the 3-4, we have take it, extend Booch. I don't see how you make your team better when you let one of your two best players leave. Keep your talent if at all possible. I don't disagree there. I think that you find a way to keep Buchnevich. Now, the 8 years would be really steep, but at the same time, if you can keep him for 5 years, can he essentially be a part of that core group? I envision him right now an important piece of this core group for the Blues.
314 says, Rocc, are you drunk? I'd lock him up for 5 years in a heartbeat. You don't have to know what's in my cup.
Oh, my gosh. Don't say that. It's coffee, by the way. Let's just go ahead and put that out there just so you don't get fired today.
It's not coffee. It's 100% Coca-Cola.
Is it?
I don't drink coffee.
Oh, you don't drink coffee?
I don't drink coffee. I need caffeine, so there's Coca-Cola. Trust me, if you see me back behind the board in the morning, if I'm drinking out of one of these cups, it's not coffee. It's Coke every time. I
feel you, man.
Thank you very much. But no, I'm not drunk. 5 years, that's a lot of money for him. Again, you're balking at the 8 years, which I'm balking at as well. But I'm also balking at $8 million for Pavel Buchnevich. I just think you heard Armstrong's description of him as a player. Is that an $8 million player for this club? I just don't believe it. I mean, when you get in that $8, $9, $10 million echelon, you're talking about guys who have to change your team as forwards. And I think this entire conversation, every conversation we've heard about the Blues going into this deadline was that, well, your top line is essentially would be a really good second line on most championship clubs. I think every conversation with the Blues has to be, do you see this player as X on a winning team? Is Pavel Buchnevich the second best forward on a winning club? I'm not sure about that. I don't know if he needs to be your third or fourth best forward if you're going to be a championship level club. Because right now, if you had to project this Blues team going into next year, Robert Thomas is number 1, Booch is number 2. And after that, I think it gets a little muddled. And that's maybe a bigger problem than the Buchnevich one. Maybe I'm focusing on a smaller issue and that you already have a guy like Booch in-house. Keep him locked in. I just think $8 million is a lot of money. But then again, on the flip side, if you want to be devil's advocate, eventually this defenseman money is going to come off the board. And so maybe when that's coming off the board, you're thinking, well, in 2 years, $8 million isn't going to be as handcuffed because defenseman money's coming off the board. The salary cap's going to go up a little bit because it's the NHL and it's only going to be minute, but it's still going to go up a little bit. And so maybe that's the mindset of, well, in 5 years, there isn't going to be a cap crunch. But then again, are you going to create a new cap crunch by signing a Buchnevich to this deal? That would be my worry.
I think that a lot of frustration, too, sometimes is that we have seen a lot of great players leave this organization, and you're seeing a lot of turnover. So if somebody is a good player, then you want to see them stick around. And he did mention, you have a lot of those younger players that we were seeing who are right on the horizon, but will they be ready to go? Say if they're coming up next season, I'm talking about a Jimmy Snuggerud, will they be ready to go? And wouldn't a presence like Buchnevich, that's something that you want to keep around? Of course, he will not be a free agent until next summer, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
That he's a free agent? And you don't want to let him leave. So it'll be interesting to see what these extension talks look like. But I do believe that he'll definitely be asking for a lot. Now, what the Blues will be willing to match with that is the big question.
We have so many. The differing opinions on the text line are legitimately fascinating. 314, don't give Arnie any more dumb ideas with 8-year deals. He's already made enough dumb ones. Absolutely do not extend him. He only looks good because the rest of the team is bad. And then 636, power play, penalty kill, and cheap prospects will be joining the team soon and making you better overall. You keep him if it's a 5-year deal.
I'm keeping him for 5 years. I think that would be a smart thing to do, especially as you're starting to get some of this newer, younger talent coming in, and it will help bridge that gap. Especially, you heard Army talk about that window and it possibly closing here. You're getting that sweet spot age for Robert Thomas, and maybe if you keep Jordan Kyrou around, which is something that I guess we'll see this offseason how that goes, it seems like it would be a great way to just kind of bridge that gap so that you have a soft retool, but not a complete retool, which is something I don't think this organization is wanting to do.
And both 314 and 636 kind of getting what I'm getting at, and maybe where my blindsided, which is 314, can you clear D-salary this offseason so that Booch contract extension is more manageable? Mm-hmm. Also 314, who apparently has moved off my drinking habits and now says, after we trade Kyrou this summer, we won't have a cap crunch. Wishful thinking. I do think that's wishful thinking. When you have a Kyrou, my question is, if you're going to move him, I don't think it's going to be just a 26-year-old player who used to be a point-per-game player level value. You're going to have to retain some of that, or you're going to have to eat the fact that you're giving away a really good player for a really big contract for almost nothing, a la Kevin Hayes getting moved from the Flyers for a 6th rounder despite having a lot of money and a lot of term left on his deal. I'm not saying Kyrou's a 6th round player. I'm saying, are you going to be happy as a Blues fan if Jordan Kyrou this offseason gets moved for a 3rd round pick?
No, I don't think anybody would. I think you would be very frustrated with that. So it's going to be a busy and interesting offseason for the Blues and Doug Armstrong. That is our Rush Hour Reset. Coming up, we're going to discuss what John Denton was saying about the Cardinals outfield. Do you agree with him? Dylan Carlson and also Alec Burleson stepping in as your outfielders, or are you wanting Victor Scott? We're going to discuss that coming up next here on the Opening Drive.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this date back in 2012, the Blues would win their 45th game of the season, beating the Columbus Blue Jackets 2-1 in regulation. No goals scored in the first period as Patrick Berglund would pick up the first. Assists from Alex Pietrangelo and Annie McDonald. Columbus would score before the end of that period, which would send it to the third tied as David Perron would score the goal less than 5 minutes in, and Barrett Jackman picking up the assist. Yaroslav Halak stopped 33 of 34 Columbus shots.
This date in Blues history was powered by Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926. For all your HVAC needs, ClassicAirCare.com.
Spectrum Business is made to work like your small business. Made to do it all with fast, ultra-reliable internet, phone, and mobile services. And made to work with a small business budget. Get 600 megabit per second business internet for just $49.99 a month for 1 year with select bundles. Plus, get an unlimited mobile line for free. Visit spectrum.com/work to lock in this deal now. Learn more at spectrum.com/work. Restrictions apply. Services not available in all areas.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and this year we decided it was time to make a major upgrade to our home by updating our bathroom. We have this house in U City. We absolutely love it. It's over 100 years old, but we don't exactly love our main bathroom. And this is really the first time we've ever done a big home project like this before. And so we decided to reach out to one of our great sponsors of 101 ESPN, and that is E&B Granite. E&B Granite's team visited our house for a free consultation, and they came up with the vision of how to just really transform our bathroom. My favorite part of working working with E&B Granite was stopping by their amazing showroom to explore all their in-stock custom countertops. They have a large selection there and all of their cabinet options. It was so much fun picking out the colors for our new bathroom. Jen was the one who was working with us, and she is amazing. She had so many great ideas for us that fit within our budget, which is what we're always looking to do there. Their friendly and experienced team has been turning visions into realities for over 20 years. So schedule your free consultation by calling 314-645-9300 or go online at enbgranite.com or stop by their showroom today and make sure you mention that I sent you.
ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can check out either the 101 mobile app or 101ESPN.com for your chance to get entered to win for a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues home game at Enterprise Center. New winners picked every month throughout the season for free tickets to see the Blues in action, courtesy of 101 ESPN. Get entered to win now online at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
It's time to fly down to Florida for a spring training report on 101 ESPN.
Presented by E&B Granite, Brooke, Jamie, Kerbs, and Bernie Federko's choice for countertops and cabinets.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Rocc, and Brunsey here. And look, the Cardinals outfield is dropping like flies right now. It is not great because you have Lars Nootbaar, who is dealing with an injury setback. It's expected that he will be out around 10 to 14 days. And then you have Tommy Edman with his setback. He had his wrist surgery back in October, and he is still not fully recovered yet. So it looks like for opening day, you will be missing 2/3 of your projected starting outfielder. Now, we had John Denton of MLB.com on a little bit earlier, and he put out there what he thinks the Cardinals outfield will now look like.
Well, I think Dylan Carlson's going to be your opening day center fielder. You know, he's a guy that they trust. I think if he got playing time and he produced as a hitter, I think Dylan Carlson could be a Gold Glove center fielder. He is that good. He always gets a good jump. He takes great routes. He's a very heady player with, very good baseball IQ. His father was a high school coach for 30 years. He's a guy who grew up in the game. So I think he'll be the opening day center fielder. I think Alec Burleson's going to win that job in left. So far, he leads the Cardinals with 9 hits this spring. They really were blunt with him. They were honest with him this offseason. They told him, you need to get better. You need to lose weight. You need to be somebody we can trust in the outfield. And he's come back. He's taken that serious. And like I said, he's hitting .375 so far. He's got 9 hits in 10 games. It looks like he's probably going to be your opening day left fielder if Lars can't make it back.
Okay, fine, John. Just absolutely crushed my dreams of having Victor Scott in the outfield to start opening day against the Dodgers. I mean, I was kind of hoping for that, but I think that what he said is very realistic. I think that we all knew that this was going to be the option there because you have to put the priorities defensively. Now, after I just said that, I realized that Alec Burleson is in that conversation. But John Denton also mentioned, he has an article about this on MLB.com currently, about how Alec Burleson really took it personally this past offseason, and how the Cardinals had that hard conversation with him where they said, look, we need you to be better defensively. So I'm interested to see what that looks like because honestly, I like his bat. And that was one of my concerns, and I voiced this not too long ago about bringing Crawford. Great idea. I like that. But then you also have the Matt Carpenter signing. I was worried about Alec Burleson getting lost in the mix because I do think that he brings a lot to your team offensively.
Yeah, I mean, the offense with him was never a question. Last year, he got a lot of his playing time and a lot of his starts out of the gate in the season because you had the injuries with Carlson. Nootbaar got injured right out of the gate. You had questions around where your positioning was. So Burleson actually jumped out last year and had the best chunk of his year to start, and he was getting a lot of starts in left field before that changed. He batted .231. He had 3 of his 8 home runs in 78 at-bats across April and May, and then everything kind of falls off. His starting became a lot more staggered, and he wasn't a good player off the bench at all for the Cardinals last year. A big discrepancy, but in his 290 at-bats as a starter last year, his OPS was 718. In his 30 at-bats as a bench player, his OPS was 421. So clearly a better player as a starter than coming off the bench. So that was going to be a big question for me with Burleson, what his role was going to be. Now you open it up. Now the starting role's open for him on opening day because of these injuries. But now the question is defensively. And the question then gets stretched even further because John Denton says that Dylan Carlson has Gold Glove level play in center field. But I think there's a reason Tommy Edman won that job and took over last year. And so now you have Jordan Walker in right field, who, again, he's been working with Jose Oquendo all offseason, but where is he as a major league level right fielder? Where is Carlson just as a day-to-day player at center field? And now you have the question of Burleson in left field. It's just simply clear to me now the Cardinals are not going to be able to put the best offensive roster and the best defensive roster on the field at the same time. And in fact, those two rosters are going to be very different.
Exactly. The picture that you had, a month or so, not even a month or so ago, has been fundamentally altered, and altered really drastically, because now you can't essentially have the best of both worlds there. You look at Jordan Walker, he is not going to be supplanted, and we know that he is your fixture there, certainly in right field. What's really enticing to me, Matt, and you touched upon a lot of the numbers here, the fact of the matter is that Alec Burleson, we have not seen what he's been able to do for a prolonged stretch, obviously, as a major league starter. Well, by all accounts, it would appear as if Dylan Carlson's going to get the nod in center field for Tommy Edman to begin the campaign. Okay, that's great. If Burleson can at least hang defensively, you are intrigued by what he could offer from an offensive standpoint, because this is still somebody, guys. He's only compiled 363 at-bats at the major league level, and I'm not worried about, so far at least, the lack of power, because that can develop. Here's what I want: to see somebody who is hitting the frozen rope, somebody who has that ability to get you out there with the line drives, and that is how he has been profiled since joining the Cardinals organization. So, as to your point, Matt, as you said, if he's able to get some run, some extended run, and not be forced to be relegated to the bench several times per week, you never know with what you could end up at the beginning of the season. And from a confidence standpoint, this is something with which he could run, and that could only benefit the Cardinals bench down the stretch of the season when finally everybody is back and healthy.
Going into spring training this year, I had two guys that were my prove-it guys, that I needed to see something from you during this spring training, that if you were going to run away with the opportunity, just so that the Cardinals evaluating moving forward, so that you knew what to do with them. One of those guys was Matthew Liberatore. The other one was Dylan Carlson. This is a huge opportunity for Dylan Carlson, one, to get back into the cold dead hands category, which is something I think we would all like to see again. But a big issue for Carlson is his lack of productivity from the left side of the plate. We saw that in 2022. We saw that in 2023. It's been a big conversation for him and what he's able to do with that. I would just like to see Dylan Carlson at least succeed, and where that's not a big conversation surrounding him, because I think defensively he gives you a great chance, but can he consistently be out there, and can he be consistent at the plate? I think that's the big question.
I actually think, to that point, this is setting up for the best chance of Dylan Carlson to prove himself as an everyday player that he's had in his career probably in the last 3 seasons. And that's because, again, the injuries now open up a defensive question, and not only is it a defensive question in the outfield, it's center field. So you can prove yourself to be a gold level player at the highest leverage position defensively at center field. And also, you just said it, he hasn't been doing great as a left-handed batter, but here's the thing. You need righties in this lineup. You have lefties all across this lineup. We talked about it with Danny Mac a few weeks ago. They're probably going to murder teams early when they're playing starters, because all the starters
are to you sometimes.
What'd you say?
I said because he can't give that to you sometimes.
Exactly,
though.
But you have all your lefties murdering righties. You're going to need somebody who can bat as a righty to kill lefties late in games. That's where Carlson actually might be able to just say, listen, fine switch hitting. I'm not even going to worry about being a being a lefty against righties. I just need to worry about who I am as a righty against lefties. Last year, as a righty against lefties, he batted 306. As a lefty against righties, he batted 221. So, I mean, this is actually setting up for him perfectly. We need right-handed bats, and we need a defensive center fielder. Carlson, this is your chance to step in and make your impact as an everyday MLB player. This is lining up perfectly for him. I'm sure he'd like it not to come at the expense of one of his teammates getting injured, but this is the perfect chance for Carlson.
But that's the whole point. It's Major League Baseball. You're making friends, but at the same time, it's a competition, and this is a competition for him to get back into that conversation because it's not a question about things defensively. By the way, last season we were talking about his lack of productivity from the left side of the plate. Now, he was injured a lot. He battled an ankle injury, but he hit just 196 from the left side with a 592 OPS. That is something that's just not going to cut it, and you need that from him this season. So it will be interesting to see how this all plays out for the outfield, but for right now, it's going to be Jordan Walker, and then you're going to have Dylan Carlson, and then you're going to have Alec Burleson. Of course, it should only be temporary, but as we saw last season, you never exactly know how long all this can last. So this is a huge opportunity for Burleson and for Carlson.
And I bet fans are just so stoked that, service time and being worried about a player's confidence is going to stop Victor Scott II from being on the opening day roster. I love this measured approach by the Cardinals. I think really when you think about it, you need to be as predictable as possible. That's the key in sports.
But it reminds me of, remember, was it a few years ago when the MLB had the slogan, let the kids play? That's always the camp that I'm in. I like to see the young, exciting players. I want to see Victor Scott's speed at a major league level, especially when that's a part of the rule changes where you should take full advantage of that. And that's something that we've talked about. The Cardinals need to be more aggressive in that way with base running this coming season, and hopefully they will. I think that if you have Victor Scott, maybe he'll help with that. Well, coming up next, we are going to discuss City SC. We're going to dive into that. That's coming up next here on The Opening Drive.
Tackle your 314-day plans with the Battlehawks this Thursday at Ballpark Village. Celebrate all things STL with a free 314-day Battlehawks Town Hall event with head coach Anthony Becht and the Battlehawks Brass. Plus, enjoy fan-favorite activities, ticket giveaways, exclusive merchandise, photo ops, live music, and more. Also, the Fast Lane will be broadcasting live from Ballpark Village from 2 to 6 p.m. This event is free to attend. Get all the details now at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Sumner One. Welcome to the one place where everything works.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and I want to tell you why I love the Missouri Athletic Club. It's because I set two big goals for myself this season, and those two goals were, one, to get into better shape, and two, to get back in the sport I grew up playing my entire life, and that is tennis. And I'm accomplishing both of those goals thanks to the Missouri Athletic Club. I work out with Christine 2 times a week, and she has been amazing. I saw amazing results and got a lot of compliments from my friends. I said friends during my bachelorette trip, and it was always great to see that. And then also getting back into tennis with Scott. It's just been so much fun to get back on the court, and I feel like I'm getting back to doing something I really, really love. They always provide a wonderful experience, and that's why I love my MAC.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues bid for bounce back on the East Coast. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns, and this Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tonight at 6, the Noot and Bruins face off on 101 ESPN. St. Louis has slipped to 6th place in the Central Division by virtue of losing 4-0 to the Rangers over the weekend. Pregame gets underway at the top of the 5 o'clock hour on 101 ESPN. Just past noon, the Cardinals and Nationals meet in spring training action in Florida. The Redbirds rolled past Miami yesterday 12-8, with Thomas Saggese wrapping 4 hits and 6 RBIs in that one. This SportsCenter update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new rows and shop 24/7 at Londoff.com and LondoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
This is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One.
Recycle here for St. Louis. Ostrak. Full allotment of subs for both teams. Austin let him go in way too easily. Arms crossed. Elio Pompeyo! Stoppage time equalizer. And the victor, the spoils with an incredible celebration. The crafty Brazil.
City SC prevents their first loss of the season with a goal in extra minutes. And City SC was able to pull out an extra time goal, as I mentioned there, in the second half in their match against Austin FC this past weekend to end in a 2-2 draw. I like saying draw better than tie, honestly.
There you go. Okay.
I'm going fully in on this, in their kits. I'm going to pull a Randy with this one. What's another one I can say? On the pitch.
In their kits with their boots.
There we Oh, the boots. There we go. That was a great addition there.
You could also say something about like how City is still towards the top of the table. You like that?
Oh, they are. So with 2 ties and 1 win on the year, City SC has 5 points at the top of the table. Is that the best way to phrase that?
Yes, that's exactly the way to phrase it. Look at you.
Thank you. All right, I'm fully leaning in on this, the Randy-isms with this, in honor of him. By the way, he will be back next week. He's in Arizona, so we did a little bit of a switcheroo there, and Danny Mac will be joining us the rest of the week starting tomorrow. But City SC, they were able to at least come away with the draw. What was your big takeaway from the match? First
of all, Celio Pompeyo is a growing star. We talked about him a lot last week already, and we had a texter who texted and was very mad that we weren't pronouncing his name correctly. I'm pretty sure it's Celio. They keep calling him Celio. The broadcast called him Celio. So I'm going to keep calling him Celio. Somebody said it's Celio or something like that. Here's the thing, though. I could be wrong. Portuguese is a funky language, and I know zero about it. I don't know. Portuguese is a weird language. I'm just going to say it right now. Not in a bad way.
You were not taught
I just don't know it.
At school?
Yeah, I don't even know if I could have taken Portuguese. Step up your game. Foreign language classes around the high schools in St. Louis area. Anyway, Celio Pompeyo was incredible, and it wasn't just the fact that he got the goal at the end, because there's a lot of variables that go into it. It's a kind of a risky try that ricochets off the defender's legs as it goes in. So it's, not the highest percentage chance from Celio, but what you have to focus on from him is the fact that the entire night he was on the left side and he was constantly trying the defense of Austin. It was one-on-one tries. He kept on winning. As soon as Gallagher was clearly spent, the right back for Austin FC, as soon as like the 60th minute hit, Gallagher no longer had a chance against Celio 1v1. And I think that was a special thing for City to get, is a player who can break down defenses 1v1. It was the issue we saw last year. We saw Celio go from a player who could break down teams 1v1, though, to now what you're seeing, which is he's tacking on goals and assists after he's able to break down defenses one-on-one. I thought that was unbelievably impressive what he was able to do the entire night on the left side. A little bit more of a downer is the fact that because Celio was such an important part of City's attack and the wingers were such an important part of the attack, it meant that the central players weren't getting as much pub, and that means that Samuel Denton did not have a game that I think he was going to be happy with. He looked frustrated when he came off for João Klaus late in the game, and it's not even Denton's fault. They didn't get the ball to him. They could not get the ball into the middle consistently for Denton. That would be the one big flag I would focus on for City, and then you also have to talk about the fact that we mentioned earlier in the show, which is Austin FC, not a great offensive team. They're missing their best player in and Sebastian Driussi, and yet Austin still scored 2 goals. So you have to right the ship with your set pieces. It was such a big reason you won last year is because you were able to score off set pieces. But, man, you really got to figure out what's going wrong because you can't be letting crosses up to center backs be beating you the way it almost did last night or on Saturday night.
Yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Leuven scoring on a penalty kick in the 49th minute, it looks like he's starting to get back to form a little bit. I know that we're still very early on, of course, here in City SC's season as they just started, but I feel like I'm liking what I'm seeing so far from Leuven.
He's been incredible. I mean, that was the amount of times that I just wrote down, go back and watch this pass from Edu yesterday because he was spraying it around the yard in extremely impressive fashion. Just every time he had a chance with a little bit of opening, he was dominating. And really, I thought the City attack against a set defense, because I think that was the big thing we talked about last year against City, against Sporting KC, I should say, was how do you do against set defenses? How do you do against a team that says, hey, here's the ball, now come break us down. You're not going to beat us in transition. Well, consistently, Austin FC said, hey, come break us down and figure this one out. They didn't do a great job of it, but they were able to break down Austin more consistently than I think they ever broke down a defense, and Edu Leuven was a huge part of it. Essentially, you see the formations listed. They played a 4-2-2-2 or a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-2, depending on how you want to list it. That was their base set. But when they got into these deep possessions against Austin FC, they completely changed things up. The fullbacks went all the way up, and then Edu Leuven came back and then just completely orchestrated the offense against these set defenses. He did a great job everywhere he was at. I think a huge difference in this team from the disappointment against Houston and the great play now has been the great play of Joachim Nielsen on the back line, but then Edu being back to being your controlling playmaker in the middle. He's been incredible, Brooke.
He's the difference maker there. And now City SC will travel to play the Los Angeles Galaxy this coming Saturday. That game is at 9:30. Oh my gosh.
West Coast will bite you sometimes.
I hate
it
these
happens.
late games.
West Coast
I'm
is gonna
sorry.
bite
I
you.
always hate it when it's. I'm like 9:30. That's like almost my bedtime now. I'm getting older. Well, anyway, City SC will play the LA Galaxy. Coming up next, we have Rocc and Roll.
The Blues play on ESPN. The wait is over tonight. Blues and Bruins. Pregame at 5, puck drop at 6.
Shoots, he scores!
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN.
It's a new year, St. Louis, and at First Community, we are excited. We have new branch locations for continued service with no appointments necessary, new digital solutions for an even better banking experience, new partnerships within the communities where you live, and lastly, a celebration of 90 years in business. If there's one thing we've learned in 90 years, it's the little things that matter. And this year, we're going to show you why. Only at First Community.
Open up your 101 mobile app for your chance to win free tickets to Hootie and the Blowfish with special guest Collective Soul and Edward McCain. On Saturday night, June 1st at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Don't miss Hootie and the Blowfish when they hit town this summer. Get all the ticket details and get entered to win those free tickets for the show right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Live from the Car Shield studio, this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
I want to rock. End roll.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
Did you know that this Thursday is 314 Day? Do you guys all celebrate 314 Day in this room right now? Brunzy and Rocc.
Of course. Yeah.
It's a big deal. But here's the thing. If you don't have plans yet, let me make some plans for you. This Thursday, March 14th, as we mentioned, 314 Day at Ballpark Village. Come celebrate all things SEL with a free 314 Day Battlehawks Town Hall event with head coach Anthony Beck and the Battlehawks brass. By the way, the Fast Lane will be out there broadcasting from 2 to 6 p.m. And also, guys, I will be there because I will be moderating the event. So I'm very excited to talk all things Battlehawks. So make sure you go out there this Thursday, and you can get all the details now at 101ESPN.com. Come hang out with us and it is the law. Come spend your 314 Day with us. And now it's time for Rock and Roll. What do you have, Rocc?
Well, we talked about some of the big things happening. We mentioned Chris Jones getting his extension during the fight. We talked about how I'm blanking on Russell Wilson is now in welding country with the Steelers after his 1-year deal. And I think the one thing we didn't get to talk about was the trade that was made over the weekend that no one saw coming, and that was Mac Jones being shipped inside of the AFC from the New England Patriots to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Patriots picking third, and I think probably changing a lot of mock drafts, or maybe solidifying a lot of mock drafts, as Mac Jones has been moved to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Patriots are in prime position to pick their new franchise signal caller.
You're telling me, how in the world did that Mac Jones news get lost in the Russell Wilson shuffle and Baker Mayfield contract? How in the world did we miss that one?
The segment had time for one mediocre quarterback.
Oh, hey, don't say that.
You're right. We talked about Kenny Pickett in that segment as well, so clearly we had room for two.
Okay. Ooh. So how are we feeling about this whole Mac Jones trade? Does it make sense? What are we doing here? I'm a little bit confused. Trevor Lawrence is there, so I'm guessing he's just also going to be there. Because here's the thing. The reason I'm confused is maybe it's because I've just read some of the reports from that Patriots dynasty thing, but it almost seems like there's been a lot of stories about Mac Jones not exactly being the best guy to have in your locker room. Have you seen that?
Well, for the better part of the past 2 to 3 seasons, Brooke, exactly, he has appeared completely befuddled there in New England. Now, it's not as if there were a ton of investments along the offensive line, as if, he happened to be surrounded by skill players left and right. His favorite target, actually, after the previous season, Jacoby Myers, went elsewhere. So I am interested to see exactly how the Jaguars period actually perform and rebound in the season to come. Jones, okay, you bring him along, you try to get him to progress. He could be a nice depth piece behind Trevor Lawrence. But if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you don't have an upper echelon Trevor Lawrence next season, boy, considering all the expectations, Matt, that surrounded that team after the playoff performance versus Kansas City, coming that close to advancing, Lawrence, we understand. He last season did a nice job, a valiant job of trying to battle through a lot of physical rigors there, physical ailments, and trying to bring that team up. But at the same point, if you think about the vertical threats, and I would even contend that ETN wasn't quite as transformative in the running game last year as you would have liked. So you have questions now. Kirk's obviously there in place as a vertical threat. What's going to happen with Calvin Ridley, Ingram? There are a lot of question marks all of a sudden.
But there's a lot of things that the Jaguars are doing right, which is you re-sign Ezra Cleveland, and now you have a solid offensive line, and we talk about it a lot, that consistency across the offensive line is even more important sometimes than actual talent along your offensive line. So the consistency along the offensive line gives me a lot of positivity about the Jaguars next season. This is a trade to protect against a week 14 and 15 ankle injury to Trevor Lawrence when you need to make sure that you maybe win one of those 2 games to keep your seeding in the playoffs right. I mean, that's all this is. This is a safety move by the Jaguars for when Trevor Lawrence inevitably does miss like the 3 games he seems to annually miss, and you want to make sure you have a quarterback who's not going to lose you all 3 of those games, might even win you one. That's the move here for the Jaguars, and that's a smart move for the Jaguars. I know it's a hard thing to imagine the Jaguars making good long-term franchise moves, but it's actually what they've been doing for the most part.
If Trevor Lawrence is healthy next season, Brooke, and Jacksonville reclaims that spot in the division, would you put the Jags' odds right there once again with C.J. Stroud and the Texans? How close? A healthy Trevor Lawrence, what we saw not last season, but the year prior. Oh, no. Still no?
I'm still all in on C.J. Stroud. One, the AFC South, I've said this 500 times, and people are going to be so tired of me saying it, is a giant mess most of the time. But I do think it's exciting that you have a lot of young, exciting quarterbacks who are really leading the way for a lot of the organizations. Will Levis, big name with the Tennessee Titans. I'm not biased whatsoever, but it'll be interesting to see how they restructure things. It'll probably take some time. I thought that Trevor Lawrence and the Jags were on a trajectory where they would be doing maybe what the Texans were able to accomplish last season, but C.J. Stroud was a surprise to everybody. I don't know if you can necessarily say surprise. Well, no, you can, because I felt like there was so much talk about.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think people were expecting Bryce Young to do a lot more, but he was in a bad situation with the Panthers. But it seems like what the Texans have in place right now, they're still, to me, the most exciting team in the AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to move and completely change your thought process there. I'm surprised, Brooke. There's not. Those are the 2 teams that are exciting you the most in the AFC South, really.
Are you trying to tell with the Titans?
Yeah, it seems intriguing that those teams are.
Look, I am a realistic fan.
Look at that.
I am a realistic fan. Of course, I want them to win.
Look, you're like throwing the light on. The cockroaches are going to scare you. They don't understand what you're talking about. They're scared. Don't scare the fans.
No, and here's the thing. If you're a Titans fan, you know what I'm talking about. We've been through a lot. My expectations are not that high. There's been a lot of changes too, so we'll see what happens. There's a lot of changes. You have Callahan coming in. Derrick Henry is gone. I know that he hasn't done anything just yet. I like Will Levis. He needs a better O-line in front of him, so we'll see if they're able to do that. But I'm not too high or too low on my Titans, because then I always get disappointed anyway. So I'm just used to the continual disappointment.
Speaking of changes, another change again for tomorrow's show, Brooke.
Another change for tomorrow's show.
Yeah, it's you and Danny Mac.
Oh, it is. It's Danny Mac and I tomorrow. Randy Kerber is out for the rest of the week, enjoying his time down in Arizona, eating all the burgers. He wanted me to eat a burger. And I did, actually. I had In-N-Out. And also Bradford Bruns. It was an absolute pleasure.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun to open the week. Yeah.
You're always great to have on. I always enjoy having you on. And we decided to name you Brunsy today. Somebody said that we have to wait a little bit to give you a nickname, but I don't care. I'm calling you Brunsy.
You're Brunsy.
I'm all about earning it, and so I will continue to try to make good on that moving forward.
You have earned it. You are Brunsy. You are Brunsy to us. Rockio, you did a wonderful job today co-hosting.
Thank you,
Still
Brooke.
weird
Incredible.
seeing you across from me in this way.
Over here.
There you are.
There you go.
Yes. But you will be back over on the boards tomorrow. Thank you all for listening today. And before we head out, I just want to say one last thing. We do have our Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge. So Selection Sunday is almost here. Get signed up to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge. Register to participate. That's a big word. Now at 101ESPN.com. It's free to enter. And this year's top scorer will take home a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 prize pack. And is brought to you by Bud Light and Twin Peaks. So make sure you go register for that today. And thank you all for listening. Coming up next, we have the balloon party. They are in today, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay, balloon party next. Thank you all for listening to the opening drive.
That's right. Show off your tourney knowledge by signing up to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge. It's free to enter, and this year's top scorer will take home a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 prize pack. Must be 21 plus and a resident of Missouri or Illinois. See the contest rules and get signed up to play in Bracket Madness now at 101ESPN.com.
Brought to you by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. And by Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.